Thank you for attending our meeting, and thank you to all those that are listening online. And it's great to see some of the Dragon people here. It's good. Craig, Coda, Kyle. Okay, well, let's go with the National Anthem first. Could we all be upstanding? Should be.
Australians, all let us rejoice, for we are one and free. We've golden soil and wealth for toil, our home is God by sea. Our land abounds in nature's gifts, all beauty rich and rare. In history's page let every stage advance Australia fair. In joyful strains that let us sing, advance Australia fair. Beneath the radiance of the cross we'll toil with hearts and hands to make this commonwealth of ours renowned of all the lands. For those who come across the seas with boundless plains to share, with courage let us all combine to advance Australia fair. In joyful strains that let us sing, advance Australia fair.
Upstanding. Could Kevin, could you lead us in prayer, please?
Thank you, councillors. Dear Lord, we gather here this evening recognising that we are fortunate to live in a country where we have the opportunity to come together to make decisions on behalf of our community. Sadly, there are many nations in the world that don't have the freedom, the opportunities to participate in their own decision making. So we recognise that strength. We also recognise that there are many in the world who are suffering. Particularly tonight, we think of those in the Ukraine who are indeed fighting to protect their freedom and their right of choice. We also recognise those in our own community of Australia who are struggling, particularly at this time, with the threat again of floods. We continue to remember those who are suffering as a result of COVID and the after effects of this very serious infection. With those thoughts, Lord, we ask that you guide us tonight in making the right and appropriate decisions for our community. Amen.
The acknowledgement of country. Council acknowledges the traditional custodians of the land on which this meeting is being held on. As the Bidjigal people of the Eora Nation, we further pay our respects to their elders past and present, and to anyone who is present at this meeting who is of Aboriginal origin. Do we have any apologies? It doesn't look like it. Thank you. Notice of live streaming of council meetings. Staff and public are reminded that this meeting is being recorded for minute-taking purposes and is also being webcast live on council's website. The recording will be made available on council's website. The order of business is as shown in your agenda. Council's Code of Meeting Practice prohibits the electronic recording of meetings without the express permission of the council.
Mr Mayor, may I interrupt?
Yeah.
Delighted to be able to advise you tonight that we have three very special guests here who wish to make a presentation. I'm delighted to introduce Craig Young, the Chairman of the St George Illawarra Dragons and Chairman of the St George District Rugby League Football Club, Coda Gasser, who is the Operations Manager for St George District Rugby League Football Club, and Kyle Stanley, who is the Football Manager for St George. I understand that Craig would like to say a few words and make a presentation. So,
Well, that's wonderful. It's great to see you here, all of you. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. General Manager said you got me now? Testing. Yes. As the General Manager indicated, I'm the Chairman of the St George Illawarra Dragons and St George District Rugby League Football Club. I just thought we'd just come here tonight and firstly, on behalf of both of those organisations, to thank the Mayor and the councillors for their appetite to get community-based football back to Jubilee Oval. As we all know, it's the home of the Red V, and we're excited about that, particularly our females, who actually on Sunday, the NRLW team beat the Roosters to become minor premiers at Jubilee, and our Tasha Gale team, who were the premiers last year, are currently running second with a game in hand. So, but unfortunately, the NRL team got beat by Cronulla, which was devastating. But they're working on that. So yeah, we just like to thank you for your support, and it's very important. And we've got another project in the pipeline down at Todd Park. We need a training facility for our junior reps and our female pathway system, because unless you have the right facilities, you can't grow the game. And as you all know, you've got to grow things from the bottom up. And so we're very dedicated to that. And for example, the St George Lease Club donated $40,000 over to Overley campus to put a gym in there, so our junior reps can train there until we get a suitable facility scoped and for the future. But thanks very much. And I've got a presentation for the Mayor.
Cool.
Thanks. Can I walk through there with the COVID stuff? Yeah.
Thanks for that. Yeah, it's good to see you.
This is they also give you a plan.
Thank you. That's great. Thanks very much for that.
staff, can we let the minutes show that the Mayor has been presented with a jersey with #1 Catress on it, and also a Dragons flag to fly to commemorate the start of the season?
And we've also got
He's going to hurt himself. Mr. Mayor, can I make a suggestion? If probably be nicer if we can get the dragon behind. Yeah, if you move further back. Yeah.
And of course, every time and as you know, this council. Well, councillors, that was a real surprise, and I must admit that it's greatly appreciated. I want to thank the Dragons for their gifts. I'll be wearing a permanently even a vet, the jersey. I think it'd be great, but I must admit, I do. They deserve our support. They've been with us for a long, long time. I suppose I've been barracking for the Dragons since I was in high school. It's about half a century ago, but anyway, but it was great to see them, and it's great, and we must ensure that we provide our support for our local team. But again, a big thank you to Craig Young, Coda, and Kyle for coming on tonight. It was a real surprise. Now,
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have the disclosures of interest.
oh, thank you. Yes.
So, Mr. Mayor, I have received a disclosure of interest from Councillor Marnie for item NN02822, potential transfer of public spaces legacy program grant funding, non-significant non-pecuniary interest. Another one from Councillor Marnie for QWN 01522, request for funding for 80 Baronia Parade Lugano Glenlee, non-significant non-pecuniary disclosure. Councillor Marnie for item CCL 01622, report of the Environment and Planning Committee, planning proposal PP 2022/00002, lot 1 DP 10359, Baronia Parade Lugano, request for gateway determination, non-significant non-pecuniary interest. Mr. Mayor, I have a similar declaration from Councillor Christina Jamieson for the same item, non-significant non-pecuniary interest. And I have a disclosure from you, Mr. Mayor, for the item ENV 009-22, pecuniary interest. And you have declared that you will be leaving the room and will not partake in any voting or discussion on the item.
Thank you,
Mr. Mayor. Are there any more disclosures, councillors?
Yeah.
There are none, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. We've got public participation on various items on the agenda. There are a total of 8 speakers registered for tonight's meeting. I would remind the speakers that speakers have a 3 minutes time limit. Speakers are subject to the provision of the Council's Code of Conduct when addressing the meeting. The first sound you hear indicates that you have 1 minute remaining. At the second sound, please conclude your comments. Thank you. The first speaker.
Unknown participant is now joining.
Hello.
I have the first speaker is Harley Wang to talk on the investigation of leash dog parks in Hurstville and Mortdale. Mr. Wang, are you there?
Mr. Mayor, that's
Yes, yes, I am.
Oh, you,
I'm just having trouble hearing.
sorry.
Is this Mr. Wang or Mr. Pappas?
This is Mr. Wang, Harley.
Harley Wang, yeah. Are you making amends, Mr. Wang? Thank you.
Oh, I am. I'm ready to speak.
Yeah, by all means, continue. Hello?
This is Mr. Wang.
Yes, can you continue with your speech to us, your address to us?
Yes, sure. So here today I want to talk about the investigation of off-leash dog parks in Hurstville and Mortdale wards.
Yes, continue.
Firstly, I'd like to thank Councillor Miss Nancy Liu for her unduly support, involvement and understanding of her needs as a community. So it's Nancy and her colleagues' support that we have achieved this milestone here today. I would also like to give a special mention to Mr. Mark Cure for his consideration of the Penshurst community. It is with pleasure that I present the subject motion. Indeed, all of us here today, including a large portion of the GRC community, is in full support of Councillor Liu's motion. It is considered to meet the current and future needs of the Penshurst dog community, including its regional surround. In my letter to Council dated 29th of November 2021, I mentioned key strategic goals outlining the GRC Community Strategic Plan, effective from 2018 to 2028. Of particular relevance are the goals under pillars 1 to 6, which have been considered to align with the ongoing needs of our community post-consultation with the Penshurst community. So the reason why Gifford Park has been recognised by the local Penshurst community has many reasons. First of all, the site is located about 800 metres to the Penshurst CBD, I guess, and the railway station. So the site is also close proximity to Beverly Hills CBD, which is also convenient for those residents that live in that area. And also the area hosts a large pet supplier retailer, which draws economic influx from around the area. The site is observed to be mostly vacant throughout the week, with the exception of scheduled soccer training events held on Monday evenings. So the majority of the site is grass, which contains an asphalt-covered netball court and children's play equipment located within the southeast and northwest portions of the site. The site also has public amenities, which include a amenities block near the vicinity of the children's playground. Gifford Park has been recognised by the local Penshurst community and its surround as an important infrastructure for dog exercise, socialisation and training needs. The park has many regular users, including more than 20 local dog owners, recreational park users, and children who will visit the dogs on a regular basis. The park is underutilised, as I've mentioned before, in its current state for a large proportion of the week. And the park, the main reason why we've considered that Gifford Park is suitable for our needs as dog owners is that it contains adequate facilities, surfaces and spaces to accommodate the needs of the local Penshurst dog community. There are many benefits to well-socialised dogs, which I won't go into too much detail here tonight due to the time constraints. However, as recognised by the Director's comment for the motion in support, is that there are currently no dog off-leash parks in either the Mortdale or Hurstville wards. It is in the community's interest to provide outdoor recreational facilities that are
Mr. Wayne, could you please round off? Your time's up.
To all residents. So heightened by the local COVID-19 lockdowns, I urge you to consider our needs as a community and adopt an omnipartial stance in order to make an assessment of the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Wade. We now have Mr. Matthew Pappas, who's giving consideration, who's going to be talking on consideration of the Pecos Park traffic.
Unknown
and
participant is now joining.
Management works.
Unknown participant is now exiting.
Mr. Pappas, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Yes.
You can start.
Start now?
Yes, please.
No worries. Okay, I just thank you, councillors, for the opportunity to speak on behalf of Pecos United Football Club on the motion for the consideration on the Pecos Park traffic and parking works. I firstly want to thank Councillor Warren Tegg for putting the motion forward to place these proposed works as a priority for the 2022-2023 budget. As you may know, our season starts this Saturday, the 2nd of April, and it's even more important to stress that these works be looked into as soon as possible. There'll be hundreds of children down at the park each and every weekend, and we also now have an increase in our Sunday games, which is due to an increase in female teams for the season. Safety is paramount, and we do need the council to start the consultation process immediately with both our club members and local residents. As a matter of priority on the motion, option A, B, D and E must be undertaken as a matter of priority. The other option is part of the long-term plans. And we agree as a club that the highlighted options must be committed to in next year's budget, as they will have the most positive outcome in the short term. Our club is willing to engage with council on consultation and happy to reach out to the local residents as well. We want to see this come to fruition sooner rather than later. We're extremely worried about the traffic issues this season, and this was raised a month ago with a few of the councils at the park. And we have a number of local football clubs utilising our park during the season. And this issue cannot be placed into hard basket for another year. We do need action on this. State Member of Parliament of Oatley, Mark Curre, is aware of the proposed motion and supportive of this passing and wants this ongoing traffic issue resolved. As I mentioned in my last discussion last year in council chambers about this proposal, the infrastructure work is crucial in saving lives and keeping the community safe. I look forward to hearing a positive outcome for this motion and its support in being a priority for funding for next year's budgets. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Pappas. Thank you. We now go to Mr. Adrian Polhill, who will be talking on food, organic garden, organic services. Mr.
Hello.
Adrian, yes, by all means. You can address us.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Hello.
Hello.
Yep,
I can hear you. We can hear you.
Okay, good. Good. Am I speaking to council now?
Yes, the whole of council.
Okay, and very good. And I'm speaking about the one of the questions without notice regarding food organics and garden organics, correct?
Correct.
Okay, good. All right. Good evening, everybody. The reason I'm talking to you tonight is that I applaud the council for actually addressing the issue of food organics and garden organics. However, I'm extremely disappointed that it's taken 2 years to get to this step. 2 years ago, you employed a consulting company to talk to you and include FOGO plans in your waste management strategy. That was June in 2020. We're nearly at June 2022. And based on the officer's report reply to the question without notice, basically I feel that nothing has happened. I'm very, very disappointed. And maybe things have happened in the background, but it's not obvious. According to the Council's Waste Strategy 21-2040, the waste strategy says that we should already be doing small-scale FOGO trials, etc. And that should have been completed January to March this year, but nothing, I'm sure. We haven't heard anything about it, so nothing's happened. I'm continuing to be disappointed because currently I believe over 40,000 tonnes of CO2 equivalent is being generated every year by the food organics that goes into landfill from the Georges River Council. When other councils like Randwick and Wollongong have already successfully implemented FOGO, I can't see why Georges River Council is dragging the feet. I urge every council to look into this very, very carefully and put the pressure on, because there's savings to be made. Penrith Council is saving $1 million a year. There's savings to be made from the environment, as I mentioned, less CO2 equivalent gases going into the atmosphere, and therefore starting to minimise our climate change. And there must be savings in terms of the environment as well, because we can put the composted material back into the environment. I urge you to really look at this very carefully and look at implementing a trial if necessary, or just go ahead and start with the education campaign, because Randwick's had a success. 25% of their food organics has now been reduced in 1 year, and that's going into their FOGO program. So that's what I have to say. Please look into it, because it's overdue. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Bolehill. We'll now go on to Ms. Laura Suto, who is going to talk to us on the investigation of off-leash dog parks in Hurstville and Mortdale wards. Ms. Suto, are you there?
We're just connecting her now.
The person you are calling, and it will be sent as an audio message.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, we may just call the next speaker and then connect Ms. Suto following Ms. Wagstaff.
We're now going on to Ms. Anne Wagstaff, and the first item that she is going to address us with is the Audit and Improvement Committee minutes of a meeting held on the 25th of November 2021. Ms. Wagstaff, are you there?
Hello.
Hello? Hello?
Hello.
Ms. Wagstaff, you're addressing us on your first item, which is Audit, Risk and Improvement Committee. You may go ahead.
What, start now?
Yeah.
I'm concerned about information in CCL 02022, appointment of chair and independent member to the Georges River Audit, Risk and Improvement Committee. The most significant error in paragraph 1 relates to the Office of Local Government's proposal that councillors could not be members of their ARIC. This proposal has not been in circulation for 3 years. The OLG did propose it back in 2019. However, in response to submissions, the OLG proposed last year that councillors can appoint a non-voting councillor member to their ARIC, optional. In other words, this crucially important information has not been provided to you. Paragraph 2 is factually incorrect. The minutes of Council's extraordinary council meeting on 28th of September 2020 do show that council resolved to discontinue council representation on the ARIC. However, as confirmed by the OLG with me, the webcast shows that this matter was not resolved. It wasn't even considered. In other words, council did not resolve in September 2020 that council representation on the ARIC be discontinued. With regard to the Councillor Elmir's notice of motion about Hardiman Reserve, after Hardiman Reserve, I object to council referring to the former Oakley Bowling Club site as after Hardiman Reserve. I've been advised only this morning that the Geographical Names Board won't likely meet to consider...
Mr. Mayor, we haven't had a registration to speak on that item from Ms. Wagstaff.
You haven't registered to speak on this matter.
I asked the General Manager, I emailed her earlier later this afternoon, and I haven't heard back, so I haven't had a no or a yes.
Could you hold on for a minute? I'll check with the General Manager.
Thank you.
General Manager.
Mr. Mayor, the only submissions I received by 12 o'clock were from Ms. Wagstaff, were to speak on 4 items: Audit, Risk and Improvement Committee, appointment of the Chair, Renewable Energy Target and Gannon's Park. I rang Ms. Wagstaff to confirm that they were the 4 items and also that she was speaking for or against them, but I have not seen anything further on that matter.
And Ms. Wagstaff, I think you will have to refrain from talking about the Arthur
No, can I just say,
Hardy
I have a
Reserve.
copy of an email in front of me that I sent to Miss Connolly at 5:04 this evening.
Well, no, well, that's
explaining
past the
about-
time.
about
Ms.
what I wanted to
Wagstaff,
speak
could you
about.
please listen to me? That's past the time. You're supposed to have it in by midday, not
I did have it
5:04
on
this
midday.
evening.
I did have it on midday, but I was contacted by, as I was told, the general manager contacted me, rang me this afternoon. I didn't know about phone calls.
Ms.
but
Wagstaff,
I
I
found the
can't
email.
argue with you. I'm going to leave it at that. I will take
Okay, well, let me
the
speak about the
information
other
from the
thing,
general
please.
manager. You can continue on with your audit risk improvement. Then you may go on to the appointment of chair, and then you may go on to the renewable energy target, and then you may go on Gunners. Apart with regards to Arthur Hardiman Reserve, you'll have to drop that. Thank you.
I questioned some of the information provided in response to Councillor Marnie's questions about Gannon's Park water quality improvement and stormwater harvesting scheme. The report states Council did not repurpose the $650,000 of the grant made to remediate the former Oatley Bowling Club site. However, this is at odds with a former Minister of Local Government, Shelley Hancock, who advised me last year that, quote, in 2020, Council repurposed $650,000 of the Oatley Bowling Club funding to supplement funds it received for the Gannon's Park project in order to facilitate its completion. End of quote. The report tonight also states that Stage 2 was completed 23rd of December 2020. However, a Stronger Communities Fund update in December 2019 indicated Stage 2 had already been completed 1 year earlier. The report states that Stage 3 was completed 30th of March 2020. However, a Stronger Community Fund update in March 2021 indicated Stage 3 was not completed till December 2020, 9 months later. The report also states that Council secured additional grant funding of $750,000 under the New South Wales Government Metropolitan Green Space Program to complete Stage 4 of the project. However, according to the Facebook page of the Minister responsible for the program, Rob Stokes, and a legal story last September, it was only $650,000. So is the $750,000 a typo, or was Council given another $100,000? Regarding Councillor Pegg's notice of motion to renewable energy target and climate action, I hope Council support his motion. The councillors know that I contacted the General Manager about my concerns. I've copied them all. And my concern is if Council did in fact declare a climate emergency back in September 2021, one has to ask why this was not mentioned in Council's subsequent media release about joining the city's race to zero. Thank you, councillors, for listening to me, and good luck tonight making good decisions.
Thank you, Ms. Wagstaff. Yeah, and that we do have Miss Laura Soto online, I presume. You're calling her.
We're calling her now, Mr. Mayor. We'll try again to contact her.
Yeah, thank you.
The person you are calling
Okay,
will be sent as an audio message.
Thank you. In this case, we'll go to Mr. Brian Ralston, request for funding for 80 Baronia Parade in Ghana. Mr.
The
Ralston.
person you are calling.
Apologies, Mr. Mayor. We were just trying Laura one more time. We're going to send her a text while we address the other registered speakers.
Thank you. So we're trying from Mr. Brian Ralston at this stage. Is there?
We're just connecting him now, Mr. Mayor. You should see him appear on your screen. It'll appear as a blue circle in the Teams box. Yep. Mr. Ralston, are you there?
Yes, Mr. Ralston, are you there? Hello?
I am, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes. You're addressing us on the 80 Baronia Parade. Would you like to start? please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Firstly, I'd like to thank Councillor Marnie for raising the motion and also the officers involved in preparing this response to it. I am president of Friends of Glenlee Incorporated, and I'd like to thank Gail Connolly, the General Manager, for the opportunity to discuss the purchase of Glenlee with her in recent weeks. For those who don't know, Glenlee is an iconic property. It has been the subject of adoption and proceedings in the Land and Environment Court, and it is now back on the market. There will never be a better time for it to be acquired as a public asset as it should be. There had appeared to be a consensus between the council, the state government and the federal government. The acquisition of Glenlee for public use was in the public interest. But at the present time, and unless and until the report, which is the subject of Councillor Marnie's motion, has been prepared, it would appear there are no council funds available to contribute to the purchase. According to the officer's response to Councillor Marnie's question, the state government's response has been that it has no funds available for the acquisition. According to the officer's response to Councillor Marnie's question, the federal minister has not responded. The Friends of Glenlee have had discussions with the federal minister, and whilst he has indicated that there is the potential of funds being available for the maintenance and upkeep of Glenlee, he indicates that they will not be available from the federal government. It beggars belief that three levels of government have no idea what the other levels of government position is in relation to Glenlee. One would hope that there is a negotiation occurring at the moment to overcome the obstacles, but the situation is each authority now says it doesn't have sufficient funds to acquire Glenlee. And if that's their attitude, their support for Glenlee is totally token and totally meaningless. We call on the council to approach the government, to approach the Minister for Planning and Environment, and the Minister for Planning and the Minister for Environment and Heritage, the latter of whom has taken up the gauntlet to pursue the issue of heritage being listed both locally and statewide for Glenlee. It is appalling to think that three levels of government are not able to come up with a sum of $10 million to purchase what is absolutely iconic, part of not only this region's history, but the state's history. We asked the council to liaise with the state government in particular, to deal with the hurdles which may seem to be unable to be overcome, to make sure that they are overcome. Glenlee cannot be lost just because the three of you can't get together.
Thank you, Mr. Ralston. Thank you for addressing us tonight. We're now going to go to Ms. Glenys Barnum.
Hello, Glenys speaking.
Sorry. Yeah. Ms. Barnum, are you there? Hello? Ms. Barnum?
Just reconnecting her, Mr. Mayor.
Hello, Glenys speaking.
Ms. Barnum?
Hello.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Could you please address us?
Thank you to Mayor and councillors. Thank you for this opportunity. When Friends of Glenlee Committee met with Rob Stokes' office last year to discuss the possibility of state funding for Glenlee, there was no interest in recommending funding for open space. But when we explained about the site being an opportunity for a much needed community hub, they were clearly interested. The Council's open space, recreation and community facility strategy, formulated in 2019, recommends the development of a community hub in Catchment 2, which currently has no community facility. At that time, there was no available place for the hub, but Glenlee provides the perfect situation for multi-purpose hub, providing access to high-quality community space with a potential bushland focus. Overall, Georges River has a low provision rate of hireable community facility space, with 36 square metres per 1,000 people as of 2016. If no additional hireable community space is provided, the provision rate across the LGA will drop to 30 square metres per 1,000 by 2036, which is considered very low. The Council obviously recognises the need to provide community facilities for Catchment 2, and the community are asking for such a provision. In Heritage Listing Glenlee, the state government has recognised it as a significant New South Wales heritage and should be prepared to help protect and preserve it as one of the only historic and cultural sites of its type left in the LGA and possibly Greater Sydney. David Coleman has told Friends of Glenlee that he feels confident that he can provide 2 to 3 million for a community hub on Glenlee. So the Council's estimated 7.2 million, along with state government funding, could provide the funds to purchase the site. We call on the Council to negotiate with state and federal government to establish this much needed community hub and cultural centre for a part of the LGA that is the only ward without any community facility, and at the same time preserve its Aboriginal and early settler history. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We do have some, we've had some information from Miss Laura Suto, who's talking on the investigation of leash dog parks in Hurstville and Mortdale wards. I'll allow her submission to be read.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It has been emailed through, and this is the written submission. Dear councillors, can I please ask you to approach council about considering Gifford Park at the corner of Young and Penshurst Streets, Penshurst, to be given an off-leash area for dogs. It doesn't have to be the whole park, and it doesn't have to be 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. If it could be more, it could be like More Reserve in Oatley is, and be off-leash 24 hours Monday to Friday, and then restricted hours during the weekend. There are many residents and ratepayers in Penshurst that have dogs and don't always have access to private transport. These residents could walk to Gifford Park and allow their dogs to run off-leash and socialise with other dogs. There are currently no convenient off-leash areas within the Penshurst area, and local residents cannot walk to the nearest off-leash parks in More Reserve, Oatley, and Gannons Park, Peakhurst, as both are just too far to walk to and from Penshurst. As luck would have it, a great pair of Gifford Park already has fences around it, so it wouldn't be a huge cost to council to complete the fencing to ensure it's a secure area for dogs to be off leash. There are many benefits that come from having an off-leash dog area in the park. Off-leash dog areas or dog parks provide a community setting in which people can gather and socialise, and where they can observe the interaction of groups of dogs and play. Dog parks allow owners and their dogs to spend time together and offer dogs a space for play and companionship with others. Leashes can cause dogs to become territorial. Roaming free is beneficial for dogs. According to Dan Emerson of dogchannel.com, proponents of dog parks cite the following benefits. They promote responsible pet ownership and the enforcement of dog control laws, give dogs a place to exercise safely, thus reducing barking and other problem behaviours, provide seniors and disabled owners with an accessible place to exercise their companions, and provide an area for community building socialising. As you can see from the above cut and paste, an off-leash area will not only benefit dog owners and their dogs, but the benefit will trickle down to other members in the Penshurst community because a well-exercised and social dog is not a barking dog and is not a bored dog and is less likely to have other behavioural issues. At Moore Reserve, you get to meet like-minded dog owners and the dogs run and play in a secure environment. These dogs are very well socialised and they get to learn their place in the pecking order from the other dogs. It's a great lesson for all dogs regardless of breed and size. The residents of Penshurst do not have availability to them of an off-leash park in their local area that is within walking distance. We have to get in our cars and drive to either Gannon's Park or Moore Reserve, and we don't always have access to a car, nor are we all a two-car family. Hurstville Council recently consulted community over a proposed off-leash area at Ebbett Park, Lugano, which is great and a good move as it's a lovely park and so many residents and dogs would benefit from such a great facility provided to them if this proposal is approved. I think it's only fair that Council do the same for the residents of Penshurst. Please consider giving Gifford Park an off-leash area for dogs. That's the end. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Thorpe. The next item on the agenda for a person to address us is from Ms. Deborah Mackey, and she'll be talking on the report of the Environment and Planning Committee held on the. Unfortunately, I have declared nuisance and I call upon the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Lansbury, to deal with this matter.
Thank you. Ms. Mackey, are you on the line?
Apologies, you don't have a run sheet, Madam Deputy Mayor. This will be read by staff. I'll be reading that submission.
Okay, thank you.
This is a submission from Deborah Mackey and it's in relation to ENV 009-22. Dear Mayor and Councillors, I would like to discuss the Activating Our Centres policy. All of Council's policy, including our housing policy and Council's commercial centres strategy, is based on projected population forecasts that were modelled in 2016/2017, before the worldwide health COVID-19 pandemic, which closed our borders to international travellers and immigrants, not to mention changing demographics and work from home practices. Have our population forecasts changed? That is a question Council should be seeking prior to any drastic changes to our commercial centres' floor space requirements. Council, in this draft Activating Our Centres policy, wants to drastically change and increase the floor space ratio requirements for certain non-residential uses in the B1 and B2 zones, when only last year Council gave a generous increase for non-residential uses in these zones by changing the floor space ratio from 0.3 to 1 to 0.5 to 1. If we look at Mortdale Village, for example, there are many empty commercial places. Has shopping practices changed? Has the public moved to more online shopping, alleviating the need for so much commercial space as we previously predicted? Council should be monitoring this floor space change over the next 2 years to determine its effect on commercial development before giving floor space concessions for basement uses. This draft policy, as it stands, could have huge adverse impacts on the scale and bulk of buildings, leading to traffic congestion and lack of on-street car parking in our local centres, with absolutely no benefit to the local communities. Council should be looking at investing more streetscape improvements like they are doing in Mortdale to activate our centres. That's the end. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Thornton. As the Mayor is actually out of the meeting at the moment and has declared an interest in this, we're going to go to the next thing of a procedural motion to rearrange some of the items on the agenda that we heard from in public forum.
I so move, Madam Deputy Chair.
The Chair, do we have an order?
As it appears on the screen, though, we should probably start with the activating incentives policy.
I'm happy to second that, Madam Chair. Madam Deputy.
Okay, thank you. That was seconded by Councillor Elmere. And we've got the order of the items, the last item that we just heard, ENV 009, report of the Environment and Planning Committee, the adoption for public exhibition. It's just dropped off the screen. And the next item will be item CCL 017-22 FIN 00922, report of the Finance and Governance Committee meeting held on 14th of February 22, the Audit, Risk and Improvement Committee minutes of meeting held on 25th of November 2021. The next item, CCL 020-22, appointment of Chair and Independent Member to the Georges River Audit, Risk and Improvement Committee. Notice of motion 021-22, investigation of off-leash dog parks in Hurstville and Mortdale wards. Notice of motion 022-22, consideration of Peakhurst Park traffic and parking management works. Notice of motion 025-22, renewable energy target and climate action. Councillors, that's the order that we'll deal with these motions in, and as the Mayor is currently out of the room, we for the previous item in public forum, the first one that we will deal with is the report, ENV 009-22, report of the environment. Oh, we're sorry, we haven't voted on. We'll need to go around the room, I think, Ms Thornton, will we? Or all those in favour? Anyone against? Councillor Borg, were you able to contribute in that?
Yes, I vote for the vote.
Okay, thank you. All right, well then we'll go to the first item then. Sorry, folks. The first item is CCL. Oh, we can just scroll back down again. Yeah, I've got it in front of me, sorry. The ENV 009-22, adoption for public exhibition, draft activating our centres policy 2022.
I'd like to move an amendment on that if I could, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Borg. What is your amendment?
My amendment is that Council defers the exhibition of this policy until such time as a report on new population data is provided to Council.
Do I have a seconder for that? Seconded by Councillor Jamieson. Councillor Borg, did you want to speak to that?
Yes, I would. Thank you. And thank you to Deborah Mackey, who spoke in the public forum on this item. And I think the question she asked was, have our population forecasts changed? And I think it's a question we don't know the answer to. And so I'm moving for a deferment of this policy until such time as we have a better understanding of the post-COVID population data and the associated demands of that data, which I believe there is a notice of motion on the business paper tonight from Deputy Mayor Councillor Lansbury. The concerns I have with this policy, which allows bonus commercial floor space underground for specific uses such as supermarkets and registered clubs, amongst a few other uses, is that we're giving the green light to development that would lead to a much greater intensity of use in our local centres than I think the community would expect or accept. And I believe it will lead to greater traffic levels in our local centres and higher demand on parking. We don't know what the cumulative impact on traffic and parking will be if there is a 100% take up of this policy in the commercial centres. Just in regards to population, comments from the Federal Treasurer, Josh Frydenberg, just over a week ago were that net overseas migration remains well below historic levels, that COVID has changed the economy permanently, and that migration levels will take years to return to pre-pandemic levels. He stated that one of the enduring economic effects of COVID-19 is likely to be a smaller overall population, with 1.5 million fewer people after 10 years than expected prior to the pandemic. So I believe Council would be wise to review and assess the post-COVID population data before making a decision on this policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ball. Councillor Jamieson, would you like to speak to the amendment?
I totally agree. I think there is, and I'm speaking especially, sorry, I have to stand up, sorry, but I don't know who to talk to. But yeah, I think there is such an issue. I think there's a lot of people I know in my ward that are very concerned. There's a lot of issues that have been raised in regards to how COVID has impacted people, the population, and there's a lot of concerns just in general, I guess, with the development and overdevelopment. So there are concerns, and I think we need to address it properly and with full consideration.
Thank you, Councillor Jamieson. Would any of you like to speak against this amendment?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Councillor Tegg.
Councillors, I'd just like to speak against this motion and foreshadow an amendment. I won't move it, but just foreshadow the reinsertion of the original recommendation in the report to the committee. Now, the reason that I'm doing that is that I was really pleased that we got a chance to hear Deborah Mackey address us on her concerns about what this policy would mean for her community and her town, and I think we should afford that privilege to everyone else. So all we're doing in the original recommendation is putting this out for consultation and asking our community members what they think about it, get their feedback on it. Do they want supermarkets in their town centres, or are they happy not having them? Do they want to make sure that they don't have to drive across town to go to a bootmaker or to a locksmith or for a Pilates class? Are they happy that under our proposed guidelines and the advice from the officers, if you read the original report, is that we won't be able to provide all the things our community wants within our community unless we provide a little bit more space. Now, a little bit more commercial space in these sorts of town centres. So there may be views for and against. We're certainly not here telling anyone tonight, telling councillors tonight, that the plan is that we're going to do this. We're going to go ahead and we're not going to listen to our community. And the choices before you tonight aren't to do this or not to do this. The choices before you are tonight is ask our community what they think about this or not. All we're seeking to do here is put this out to get the views of our community, to ask what their feedback is, and then so that we can then make a decision. Do we want to wait for more data, or are we happy that it's just not in the best interest of our community? They're not interested in it, so we're not going to proceed with it at all. Now, Councillor Borg has talked about the housing targets and how those might need to change and how COVID has impacted those, and she's certainly right. And that's the information that these housing targets are based on. As mentioned in relation to the question on notice, there was a report put out in December of 2020, which, as we'll recall, was halfway through the COVID pandemic. And in that, there are the population projection overall for Sydney before over a 10-year period before COVID was a growth of 900,000, and then in December of last year it's a growth of 600,000. So there is a reduction, and we're basing that in. There is a big reduction in net overseas migration in this projection. So there is already data and already information put together that is before the state, that is before council, that is available now if you'd like to look at it, as to what those projections are going to be. But at the end of the day, 600,000 more people in Sydney is still a lot of people that have got to find somewhere to live. They've got to find somewhere to shop. They've got to find somewhere to fix their boots and all those sorts of things. And a lot of them are going to be living in our community, and our community will be stronger for welcoming those new arrivals. So, councillors, I encourage you to vote against this amendment, not because it says that you're for this sort of development, but it says that you are for asking our community what they think and getting their feedback on these ideas before we can go forward and make a decision, potentially with new data that might come along as well. Nothing in this motion commits us to proceeding with this strategy, but it seems to me short-sighted, councillors, not to seek the views of our community on what they would like to see in their town centres.
Thank you, Councillor Tegg. We have had 2 speakers for, so I'm going to call for if there is another speaker against.
Yep.
Councillor Elmer.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Listening to the debate tonight, I can see both sides of the argument, and I must say that I do agree with Councillor Tegg on this motion, because it is good procedure. It's good procedure to send it out to the community to get their feedback, to tell us whether they agree or disagree with this program. But it's about transparency, and it's also about good governance. I've been on council in the past where, as you might remember, Councillor Lansbury, where spot rezonings were actually quite common. Like, that was a common procedure that councils used to undertake. Used to happen here at Hurstville, it used to happen all over Sydney. And I think what this does is actually show the community that if there was ever an application in front of us that wanted to seek extra density, then this is the procedure that they must go by, and this is the policy that they must go by. And we've had a number of councillor workshops on this, so I think it's important to recognise the fact that we have been doing quite a bit of work on this. But drawing back to the point of our migration projections and our increase in population, yes, that is one element of it. We may have a reduced population targets than what was foreseen in previous years prior to the pandemic. But there is one issue that all sides of politics and to both governments, federal and state, seem not to be able to grasp, and that is the affordable housing targets. It's quite simple. It's market. Increase the supply, will reduce the prices. And I think that's important, that if we're going down this path, we also have to look at the other aspect of it. This is not committing us to anything at all. If anything, it's just allowing the community to have a say. And that community will then send that back to council. Councillors can then look at the information and we can make a decision according to what that feedback is. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Elmere. Councillor Borg, would you like to exercise your right of reply?
Yes, please, if I could. Yeah, just to clarify, we're not saying that we won't give the public a chance for consultation on this. This is a deferment of the policy until until we have more information so that councillors can make informed decisions. I don't think councillors should be making decisions that will incur the council officers to spend time to run the public consultation when councillors aren't comfortable that all of the information regarding the demand that this policy is the objective is to meet, that we don't know if that demand still exists without that population data. So this is not about housing data, it's not about housing targets or affordable housing, it's about a policy that gives bonus underground floor space for commercial purposes. And I think that we should wait for the population data before we make a decision to put that out on public exhibition. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Borg. As we've heard from all the speakers, I think we'll go to...
I have a question, Madam Chair.
Councillor Konjarski.
Thank you. Could I refer to the director and see if there's any chance of getting that population data whilst whilst it's on display? Whilst the policy, sorry, is on display.
Through you, Madam Deputy Chair, to Councillor Konjarski. The preliminary investigations we've done with the Department of Planning and the Greater Sydney Commission is that the report that looks at population growth for the state needs to wait till the release of the census data that was undertaken in 2021, and they've indicated to us that that information will not be available for us until September this year.
Thank you, Ms. Bishop. Were there any further questions? Okay, then I think we'll move to the vote on this. Do we need to go around, Roxanne, Ms. Lawton?
I think we do, because of the foreshadowed motion. I will start with your... We could vote electronically if you want. No, we can't vote electronically, I'm sorry, because of the blended status. Can I start with your vote, please?
For the amendment.
For the amendment, thank you. Councillor Borg.
For.
Councillor Elmere,
Against.
Councillor Green,
Against.
Councillor Jamieson,
For.
Councillor Konjarski,
Against.
Councillor Liu,
Against.
Councillor Marnie,
For.
Councillor Mort, Councillor Smertley,
Against.
Councillor Stratokopoulos,
Against.
Councillor Symington,
For.
Councillor Tegg,
Against.
and Councillor Wang.
For.
That's 7 votes for, 7 votes against.
Thank you. I will exercise the casting vote to vote for the amendment.
For the motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Could somebody call Councillor Catras back into the room, please?
Thank you, councillors. I'm back again. Let's go to the confirmation of minutes of previous meetings. Could I have a mover and a seconder to confirm the minutes of? Sorry.
Mr Mayor, the council did, whilst you're out of the room, move a procedural motion. However, mayoral minutes do take precedence according to the code of meeting practice.
Thank you for that, Ms Connolly. So we go back to confirmation of the minutes of the ordinary council meeting held on the 28th of February 2002. Could I have a moved by Councillor Symington, seconded by Councillor Lansbury. I'll put it. All those in favour say aye. All against say no. I declare the motion carried. We now go on to CCL 015-22, confirmation of the minutes of the extraordinary council meeting held on the 7th of March 2022.
Move that way.
Moved by sorry, I was about to say Mayor Green. Moved by Councillor Green, seconded by Councillor Smertley. All those in favour say aye. All those against say no. I declare the motion carried. I do have my minutes that I'd like to read to you. I've got 4 sets of minutes, so just indulge me, councillors, and I need to tell you about, in the first instance, the congratulations to council officers for the opening of the Penshurst Park Sporting Hub and Youth Facilities. It was very much my pleasure to officially open the Penshurst Sporting and Youth Hub on the Saturday, the 19th of March 2022. I was accompanied by my fellow councillors, Kevin Green, Colleen Symington, Ben Wang, and Lou Konjowski, and also our General Manager, Ms. Gail Connolly. The opening must be viewed with significant credit to the Acting Director of Community and Culture, Ms. Christy Dodd, and her staff. They are all to be congratulated for organising such a successful event under the most difficult weather conditions. On the day of the opening, along with other councillors, the event was attended by representatives of Three Bridges, St George City FA Football Association, Hurstville Zagreb Football Club, Football St George, and Football New South Wales, who all gathered at the precinct for the opening. The Penshurst Park Sporting and Community Hub is a 13,000 square metre multifaceted development focused on providing regionally significant recreation and community facilities within the St George area. The second stage of the work on the Penshurst Park Sporting Hub project involved the construction of the FIFA accredited synthetic soccer and a 265-seat grandstand, gender neutral and accessible change room, sporting facilities, public amenities, and a new scoreboard. A youth centre with multi-purpose sports courts, training rooms, facilities, outdoor exercise station, and car park upgrade was also constructed as part of this project. The second stage enhances council's existing facilities of Hurstville Aquatic and Leisure Centre and the Norm O'Neill Cricket Centre to be a state-of-the-art regional sporting hub. The Commonwealth Government provided $1 million community development grant to support and assist council in the construction and delivery of the synthetic football field as part of the project. The remaining funding for the project is allocated from developer contributions, voluntary planning agreements, and council funds. For me, it was a very exciting experience to see the buildings and the football ground being used by many with such enthusiasm and real energy. I very much appreciate the fact that our community can now experience and enjoy our Penshurst Sporting Hub not only as a new facility for all ages, but also a safe and nurturing place for our youth to relax, socialise, and learn. And I'm pleased that the synthetic facility is available during weekdays for the community to use free of charge between 9 a.m. and 4 p.m. I congratulate everyone who has been involved in this project, and a big thank you to Three Bridges and the many sporting groups that will make the facility their home. I therefore move that council officers be congratulated on the opening of the Penshurst Park Sports Club and Youth Centre on the 19th of March 2022, and that councillors express our sincere appreciation for their tireless efforts in making it a success. I move that way. Seconded by Councillor Green. All those in favour say aye, all those against say no. I declare it carried. I'm now going to a Mayoral Minute which deals with the access to the 5 billion West Connects funding for COVID-19 areas of concern. In September 2021, the New South Wales Government announced the 5 billion West Invest program to build new and improved facilities and local infrastructure to help communities hit hard by COVID-19. The current list of 15 local government areas to receive funding does not include all of the local government areas which were subject to harder lockdown rules as areas of concern. At its meeting on the 25th of October 2021, Council resolved to write to the Premier and Treasurer of New South Wales to request that the terms of the recently announced West Invest program be extended to include all local government areas that were affected by the tougher areas of concern lockdown rules. And this should include Georges River and Bayside Council areas. Council also resolved to write to all our local members of Parliament and local government New South Wales to seek the support for Council's request. In accordance with this resolution, on the 8th of November 2021, the General Manager wrote to the Prime Minister and Member for Cook, the New South Wales Premier, the Treasurer of New South Wales, the Federal Member of Barton, the Federal Member for Banks, the State Member for Oakley, the State Member for Lakemba, the State Member for Rockdale, and the State Member for Cogra, and President of the Local Government New South Wales. In separate correspondence, the General Manager also lodged a New South Wales pre-budget submission and wrote to the New South Wales Treasury on the 25th of January 2022, requesting the inclusion of Georges River Council in the West Invest Fund program. To date, Council has received responses from Ms. Linda Scott, President of LG Local Government New South Wales, on the 16th of November 2021, and on the 6th of December 2021, the Honourable Mark Kure MP, dated the 18th of November 2021, and a letter of reply from the Treasurer of New South Wales, the Honourable Matt Keane MP, on the 21st of March 2022, indicating the New South Wales will continue to review the need for targeted support. I think you know what that means, and I'll read it again. The Honourable Matt Keane MP on 21st of March 2022, indicating that New South Wales will continue to review the need for targeted support. I've read that letter. What am I supposed to say? It's basically saying, without using rude words, please go away. So I don't hold my hopes up, but I think we should give it another go. Therefore, and I'll also be talking to Bayside Council so they can give it another go. And I just want to find out what reaction or what they received from the numerous politicians that they wrote to, which was instigated by us writing to the government members of Parliament. My motion is that Council again write to the Premier, the Honourable Dominic Perrottet MP, and Treasurer of New South Wales, the Honourable Matt Keane MP, to request that the terms of the recently announced West Invest program be extended to include all the government areas that were affected by the tougher areas of concern lockdown rules, and this should include Georges River and Bayside Council areas. That Council again write to all our local members of Parliament and local government New South Wales to seek their support for the Council's request. I move that way. I need Councillor Lansbury, thank you. All those in favour say aye. All those against say no. The ayes have it, and I declare the motion carried. Councillors, we do have some further good news, and this is another Mayoral Minute. As the new Mayor of Georges River Council, I look forward to working together with the General Manager and Council officers to continue to deliver exceptional services for our diverse community. Since Council was last updated in July 2021, I am pleased to report that the General Manager and the staff have been successful in securing another 18 grants valued to over $2.5 million. These successful grant applications will support Council's initiatives and projects that build the social, cultural, environmental and economic life of the Georges River. Councillors, I'm going to read every one of them because I'd like them to be minuted as part of the Mayoral Minute, so that you can refer it if you need any further information. then by all means request it. I'm not going to read right through everyone, but the first one is the New South Wales.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, did you say that they're going to be taken as read, or were you going to read them?
Sorry?
Did you say that they're going to be tabled as read? Is that
Would you have copies of them?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
well, if you have copies of it, there's no need to read them out. But I do want every one of them indicated as a mayoral minute and indicated in the minutes of this meeting. So if you've got them all, there's no need of dealing with that. Sorry. Yeah, it's seconded them. It's seconded by Councillor Green. All those in favour say aye. All those against say no. Declare it carried. One more minute. One more mayoral minute. On the 10th of March 2022, Georges River Council was recognised for engineering excellence for 3 major projects by the Institute of Public Works. Yes.
Sorry, I thought they were all tabled as read.
No, this is another one that has to. It has a motion too.
Okay, I thought you were just going to go straight to
I'll read it out.
Yeah.
On the 10th of March 2022, Georges River Council was recognised for engineering excellence for the 3 major projects by the Institute of Public Works, Engineering Australia, New South Wales and ACT at its annual state conference. The annual Engineering Excellence Award aspires to endorse and recognise excellence of local government and public works projects through inspiration, innovation, collaboration, development and completion of projects and technical management. The awards showcase the individual as well as the team ambitions to improve the local community. 3 engineering excellence awards attained by a council include, in this category too, we were winners of the category new or improved techniques for standardised design across amenity blocks. The standardisation of amenity blocks design has been a long-term project for Georges River Council and has culminated in the development of 25 standard designs to suit the varying needs of the community and sporting clubs. The benefits realised from standardisation include streamlined tender preparation, replicable construction processes and techniques, ease of maintenance and repair, and enhanced daily routine cleaning. We did get a highly commended in category 1B, projects greater than 500,000 but less than 5 million. This was for Charles Prairie Inclusive Sporting Amenities. The Charles Prairie Inclusive Sporting Amenities is a culmination of collaboration across council, the community, and key supporting associations. The new sporting amenities building includes a canteen, storage, gender-neutral change rooms, referees room, medical room, public amenities, and covered barbecue and social area. The inclusion of Georges River Council's disability inclusion action plan in the design of this sporting amenities building was instrumental to the success of the project. Another highly commended project in category 6 was the Environmental Enhancement Project or initiative including recovery, recycling and reusing for Gannons Park water quality improvement stormwater harvesting scheme. The Gannons Park water quality improvement stormwater harvesting scheme is a large-scale landscape and stormwater treatment project focused on reinstating a section of Boggywell Creek to develop significant public space and improve the community's connection to environmental processes. This project also won the Excellence in Integrated Stormwater Design Award at the Stormwater New South Wales 2021 Award in December. I do congratulate all the council officers and the directors that were involved in this, and winning these awards puts us up there as a council to be identified for excellence. I therefore move a motion that council congratulate the council officers involved in the delivery of the 3 projects recognised by the Institute of Public Works, Engineering and Australasia, New South Wales and ACT for engineering excellence at the 2022 State Conference. I move that way. Councillor Jamieson, thank you. I couldn't hear who. It was Councillor Symington. Sorry, Councillor Symington. It's moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Symington. All those in favour say aye. All those against say no. I declare the motion carried. Obviously, the order of business has changed in my absence, so I will now go to the report of the Finance and Governance Committee meeting held on the 14th of February 2022. Audit, Risk and Improvement Committee minutes of the meeting held on the 25th of November 2020. Councillor Borg.
Yes, okay, so I would like to move the committee paper in full from items, can I do that? FIN 008-22 to FIN 013-22.
Who wants to speak?
Mr Mayor, Council has only moved a procedural motion to deal with that one item from the report of the Finance and Governance Committee that had the speaker on it, and that was the item on the ARIC committee minutes. So, Councillor Borg, could you please move FIN 009-22?
Okay, yeah, I will do that. I will move item FIN 009-22, the Audit, Risk and Improvement Committee minutes of the meeting held on 25th November 2021.
Do I have a seconder?
I'm happy to second that, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Tim, thank you. Do we have any discussion on this item? As we don't have any discussion, I'll put it. All those in favour say aye. All those against say no. The guys have it, and I declare it carried. Okay, now we've got another item. Again, CCL 0222, appointment of chair and independent member of the Georges River Audit, Risk and Improvement Committee. Councillor Borg.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. I would like to move this item with an amendment, if I could.
Can we have a look at your amendment? Yeah.
Yep, I can read it out whilst they bring it up on screen. My amendment is that Council defers this item to the April Council meeting to allow more time for consideration by councillors.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Jamieson. Do we have any? Would you like to speak to your amendment, Councillor Borg?
Yes, just very quickly, I just note that the recommendation in the report is to appoint the chair for 3 years with an extension of 6 years. So just with an extensive length of time such as that, and as a new councillor, I would just like additional time to review the candidate before making the decision. So,
yeah. Is anyone speaking against this motion? Councillor T.
Mr. Mayor, I appreciate that new councillors might feel like they need a little bit more time. I might, however, suggest that we include C in the amended motion, thanking the current chair for his contribution, because regardless of the appointment of a new one, I think we should certainly thank Mr. Horn for his contribution to our council. So if I could recommend that amendment to Councillor
Borg, would you accept that amendment?
yes, I'm happy with that amendment.
Yeah. So we just add that to the motion of Councillor Borg, and that becomes the motion. And is anyone speaking for it or against it?
I have a question, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Elmere, yes.
Would there be any risk in us deferring this for the April meeting? Will we not have a chair, or will we have issues regarding that? If that could be through you.
What was that? Could you speak up, please, Councillor Elmere? Just
to check whether. Yeah, sorry, Mr. Mayor. I just want to check through you if that's possible that we can defer it till April and it won't have any ramifications with regards to our audit and risk committee.
Thank you, Councillor Elmere. General Manager.
Mr Mayor, the last meeting that the current chair will chair is the June meeting for ARIC. So after that time, Council will have had to have appointed a new chair before that date. Tradition and protocol dictates that one of the current ARIC members, for continuity purposes, would assume the chair after that time. And then a new member would be appointed to take the place of Mr. Horn.
Okay. Now,
Sorry, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Ted.
I've just realised that my amendment has made this not make sense. So just to propose some additional amendments to A, just so that it makes sense. The council defer the appointment of a chair and independent member to ARIC to the, rather than just saying this item, because obviously this item includes something that's now being done now. That's all. So just to basically defer A and B and to proceed with C is effectively what I'd be seeking to do. So the council defer the appointment of a chair and independent member to ARIC to the April 22 council meeting.
Are you okay with that, Councillor Ball?
Yes, I'm happy with that.
Okay.
Thank you.
So could we have that? Could we have that changed, please, so if the councillors can see it?
Just wait. Just ask Councillor Board to confirm that she's.
Sorry? Councillor Ball, could you just confirm, well, once it's finished, could you just confirm that what's on the screen is acceptable to you?
It's very, very small, so I'm waiting for it to come up on the
I didn't hear.
it's very small, the screen. So
yeah,
okay. The council.
Perhaps Mr. Mayor might be easy just to read that out. It's only a
Well,
paragraph.
I'll read it out, yeah. That council defers the appointment of a chair, an independent member to the Georges River Audit Risk and Improvement Committee to the April 2020 council meeting to allow more time for consideration by councillors, and B, that council thank Mr. Stephen Horn for his valuable contribution to Georges River Council as a member of the ARIC, since amalgamation 2016 to 2022, including as chair 2021 to 2022. Councillor Ball, are you happy?
Thank you. Yes, I'm happy with that.
Okay.
Thank you.
And Councillor Jamieson, are you happy with that? Okay. Now, is there any further discussion on this? There's no further discussion. I will put it. All those in favour say aye. Aye. All those against say no. I declare it carried unanimously. Thank you. Now we're going into this one, yeah. Now we're going into NM 021-22, investigation of off-leash dog parks in Hurstville and Mortdale. We have that in our business plan. So you're moving? Oh, who moved? Councillor Lou. Sorry, Councillor Lou. I just haven't opened up my business page. Yeah, moved by Councillor Lou, seconded by Councillor Luke Konjowski. Luke Konjowski. Did you want to speak to this, Councillor Lou?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank
Very briefly, I wanted to move as it's printed on the paper, and thank you, Laura and Harley, on their speech during public forum. I think I should thank you, Councillor Konjowski. Back to last council term, he already raised up these. I think the similar topic back to council, but things are being stopped. So that's why I bring back to this term. Thank you for Councillor Konjowski's support to second my motion. So I wanted to emphasize the 3 points in the motion. That the general manager prepare a report into potential locations for an off-leash dog parks within the Mortdale and Hurstville ward, because within these two wards there are none currently this kind of park in these two wards. So ABC, I wanted to see trial locations for those dogs parks for those two wards, and identify amendments to plans of management required to facilitate new off-leash dog park. And C, estimated cost for establishment and ongoing maintenance of the parks. The reason is it's back to the 7th of February. A community meeting was held at the park. One of the options in Pension's area. Thank you for the manager of strategic placemaker and her team. We had a good meeting on site, and people raised their request why this one would be a proper one of the options. So that's why I wanted to see the report to give us different locations, so we can back to council, let councillors or the community to consider which one or or the model would be the proper one. So that's why I want to see the report comes back to, I don't know which council meeting, but we'll see the report. So thank you for the other councillors. Thank you for your consideration to support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any objection to this motion? If there's no objection, I'll put it. All those in favour say aye. All those against say no. I declare it carried unanimously. Now we'll go to the notice of motion 2222, consideration of Peakhurst Park traffic and parking management works. Councillor Tegg.
I'll second that.
Seconded by Councillor Konjarski. Councillor Tegg, this is your motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just very briefly, councillors, I know this issue is well known to a lot of you. I know Councillor Jamieson was out there as was Councillor Green, the public meeting with us, and Councillor Marnie. I apologise for forgetting anyone else who were out there at that meeting with the club. This is a safety issue that has been going on for a little while now. What the staff have done very well, and you can see in the comments to this motion, is itemised those areas that can be done separately and quickly. And so I certainly, and Councillor Konjarski was there, of course. So I apologise if I've left anyone else off that list. But no, look, the staff have done a fantastic job breaking down those costs, because there are some items in those expenses that are more urgent, because they will make a more immediate impact on the safety situation down there. And that's been able to come about through fantastic cooperation with the club. And so I'd like to thank Mr. Pappas, who spoke this evening, and for his constant advocacy on behalf of his club and the kids who play there. So I look forward to the staff getting out there, doing some consultation during May, and then coming back and hopefully including some of this money, particularly those areas that aren't more important, right up front. So great work all round. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Councillor Tegg. If there's no objection to this motion, I will put it. Councillor Jamieson, do you have an objection?
Oh, it's more of a question.
Sorry?
It's more of a question.
For what? Sorry? For it. Oh, you have a question.
Question.
Okay, yes.
Yeah. I'll stand up. Sorry. So through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm asking how this issue, has the council assessed this as a safety issue? And if it is, how are we able to mitigate it? The issue that's been raised since May last year.
Councillor, General Manager.
Mr. Mayor, the council hasn't addressed it as a safety issue. At the moment, the parking and fencing fully complies with the Australian standard. If the council were to reverse the direction of the parking to be rear to curb, then it would become a safety issue, because it would not comply with the Australian standards. Council has looked at the accident data for the area for the last 5 years, and that data does not reveal any concern that has been raised by the police or council's insurers or council's traffic experts. So at the moment, it does not meet any of the criteria to be regarded as a safety risk. However, the staff are aware that members of the community feel that the parking should be rearranged to be rear to curb rather than front to curb to allow improved visibility. The staff have therefore optioned up for councillors some matters for their consideration, including removal of the fencing altogether and other matters that will improve the traffic management and parking in the precinct. But at this point in time, it hasn't been assessed by the experts as presenting a safety risk.
Thank you.
Sorry, can I just clarify that question?
Sorry?
Can I further ask a question in relation to that? I appreciate the traffic, but there's children that can't walk. They have to walk on the road because there's nowhere to walk on the other side on a footpath. There's nowhere to walk. So I understand the traffic issue, and that may not be a safety issue or, compliance, but I'm still very concerned that I was there, as was Councillor where they raised issues and number of stories where children are almost near misses. There was an accident recorded and reported to council in 2018. I'm really concerned. I know
Councillor Jamieson, sorry to interrupt you, but I've given you a bit of leeway. You're actually addressing the council. No clarification, no question. So I must ask you to get to your question or the clarification that you seek.
Okay, so sorry. So the traffic issue isn't a safety, but what about the children? Has that been reported or recorded or considered in the safety issue as a safety issue? Mr. Mayor, the fencing as constructed complied with the relevant standards as at the time of construction. That applies to a number of council assets across the area. Some of those assets that we have, if constructed now, obviously would no longer comply. And that's across a range of areas, such as disabled access to bus stops, for example. So at the time they were constructed, these facilities comply, and that is council's obligation. Standards may have moved on and changed. Council's only required to upgrade fencing or parking or asset if a risk has been identified by the experts and there is a priority identified for safety. That's not the case in this particular case. We only have a couple of instances that have occurred in the last few years where an immediate safety risk has been identified by our experts, technical experts or lawyers, and they are well documented to the council.
Is there any objection to this motion? As there are no objection to the motion, I'll put it. All those in favour say aye. All those against say no. I declare it carried unanimously. We'll now go to the notice of motion 25, renewable energy target and climate action. And this is a motion from Councillor Ted. Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There is just one amendment that I'll move up there to section D of that motion. It reflects the director's comments that we have, in fact, already declared at council a climate emergency. I think rather than just striking it, I thought it would be worthwhile amending that to effectively reaffirm that, so that you councillors who've been elected have the opportunity to join us in doing that. We obviously did that, and I and the former councillors, people who were part of the previous council, had the.
You're actually making an amendment. Do we have a seconder?
I apologize. So, sorry, it's on the board there. So it just says in part D that the newly elected council reaffirms the decision of the previous council and declare a climate emergency. So that will be the new D. So I'm as the mover, I'm amending my own motion. Is that all right with the seconder? Excellent. Yeah, so again, everything else there remains unchanged. Fantastic work by the staff, achieving that 100% renewable earlier than we originally planned. And obviously the extensive damage in the recent events has been pretty horrific. And I think we can only expect more of that as man-made climate change makes its impact felt. So I encourage you to support the motion.
Is someone, are you seconding this, Councillor Marnie?
Yes, I am.
Are you going to speak for it or objecting to it?
I just want to clarify something. I fully support Councillor Teague's motion. In the director's report, it says council has already declared a climate emergency in September 2021. So could I just clarify that? Have we declared one or?
The general manager?
Yeah.
The director, sorry.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Marnie. So at the council meeting on 27th of September 2021, which the director's comment reports to, it was a report that was put up, or a notice of motion that was put up by Councillor Teague that related to us as part of the city's race to Zero program, which was part of the COP26 work that councils were doing, and we were asked to join that program, and the council agreed with that. And as part of that resolution, the council did declare a climate emergency. As it says, George's council will declare a climate emergency. So that was done as part of that resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bishop. So we have a mover and a seconder. Or do we have any objection to the motion?
Just for the benefit of some councillors that may not know what.
Could you stand, please, Councillor?
Sorry, yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Just remind everyone, all the councillors, that please stand. It's not so much respect for me, but I can hear you. So,
yeah. Mr. Mayor, if we can just get a little rundown of what a climate emergency is.
Ms. Bishop.
I will do this off the cuff, Councillor Almia, through the Mayor. I guess the climate emergency, we are talking about just what's been reported in the news over the weekend, record temperatures at both the poles. We're talking about what happened in 2019, the southern part of the state being completely obliterated by bushfire. We're talking about what's going on in the northern rivers with loss of life and property and livestock and natural vegetation with the floodings that have occurred. With that, of course, we've got within our own community, we've got impacts that are occurring on our own assets and the cost that goes with that. So that's just for Georges River. And I was understanding that, just hearing a quote from what's going up just to fix the roads in the northern New South Wales is well over $200 million. We're talking about trying to maintain the temperature rise from post-industrial rates by keeping that no greater than 1.5 degrees to maintain, I guess, the world as we see it now.
Thank you, Ms. Bishop. Could I put the motion, as no one's objecting to it? All those in favour say aye. Aye. All those against say no. I declare it carried unanimously. That finishes the ones that we brought forward. We now go to the reported Environment and Planning Committee meeting on the 14th of March 2022. Councillor Lansbury. Oh, sorry, condolences. I forgot that you did mention to me, Councillor Green. Yes, I do apologise.
And I'll only be brief. I'd just like to record, I only found it out on the weekend, and many of you would be aware because of her extensive contribution to, firstly, what was Georges River Community Services and Mortdale Community Services, and what now is called Jubilee Community Services. The sad passing last weekend, the weekend before last, of Sally Penfold. Sally was an enormous contributor on the start of that organisation for many years. It only came to my attention on Saturday night that sadly Sally had passed away. Many councillors, of course, and staff would also know her husband, Bill Penfold, through his extensive contribution and generous voluntary work with Lugano Alliance Club. Unfortunately, I only found out, as I say, on the weekend that the funeral was in fact at 3 o'clock this afternoon, and I had another meeting commitment at 4 o'clock, so I was unable to attend. But I'll be absolutely certain in saying that there would have been a large attendance from within the local Georgia area, particularly from the Lugano and Mortdale and Penshurst communities. And I'd just like to record on every councillor's behalf what a sad loss to the community, and particularly to Bill, the loss of Sally Penfold. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Other condolences while we sorry? No, I think we should have a moment's silence for those that have passed. Thank you, councillors. We can now go to the report of the Environment and Planning Committee meeting held on the 14th of March. Councillor Lansbury.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move items ENV 007-22 and ENV 008-22.
I
can get a seconder.
Sorry. We've already dealt with the second one, I think.
It's the minutes and it's the item of the planning proposal for Glen Lee.
I don't want to be here if we're going
We don't confirm the minutes of the committee.
It's just the first one, isn't it?
The only item outstanding on that report, Councillor Lansbury, is ENV 008-22.
Sure, then we'll just move ENV 008-22 if I can get a seconder.
Thank you. Are there any speakers on this item? Any objections? Okay, well, I'll put that. All those in favour say aye. Oh, sorry, seconder. Could I have a seconder, please?
I'll have to.
Councillor Jamison, thank you. All those in favour say aye. All those against say no. I declare the ayes have it and declare it carried. The report of the Finance and Governments Committee meeting held on the 14th of March 2022. Councillor Borg, and I think we've spoken on various.
Mr. Mayor, I'll move the committee paper from items FIN 008-22 and then from FIN 010-22 to FIN 013-22. Note item FIN 009-22 was already dealt with earlier.
Well, that's already been done. Seconder, Councillor Green. If there's no discussion, I'll put it. All those in favour say aye. All those against say no. The ayes have it, and I declare that carried. And we now go to the report of Assets and Infrastructure Committee meeting held on 14th of March. Councillor Symington.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move items ASS 005-22. There's 4 items inclusive up to ASS 008-22.
Seconder. Who was that?
Sorry.
Councillor Mayor. Are there any discussions on any of the items? As there are no discussions, I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. All those against say no. I declare the ayes have it, and I declare the motion carried. Report of the Community and Culture Committee held on the 14th of February. Councillor Luke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can I have this approved as the minutes been printed?
Thank you. You're seconding it, Councillor Konjarski. If there's no discussion on this, all those in favour, please say aye. All those against say no. I declare it carried. We've discussed the appointment of Chair Independent Member. Applications for Councillor Ward Discretionary Funds Policy March 22. Sorry.
Yes.
Councillor Borg, sorry.
I'll move that motion.
Seconded, Mr. Mayor.
Seconded by Councillor Almere. Is there any discussion on this?
Yeah.
Councillor Wayne.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, just a small correction. So I did make a declaration of full conflict of interest, just the no significant.
I think what
is that is about the
Mr. Mayor and Councillor Wang, I understand that Councillor Wang is saying that you did disclose an interest on the application form itself. Yes. Is that what you're saying, Councillor Wang? That has been recorded and is on file. There's no need to declare it separately in the minutes this evening. It is declared on the application form.
Thank you, Councillor Wang, and thank you, Ms. Thornton. Is there any discussion on this matter? Councillor, sorry. All right, I will put it. All those in favour say aye. All those against say no. I declare the motion carried, and we're now going to tabling of disclosures of interest returns. Councillor Hall, yes.
Yes, I move that motion as it's read.
Seconded, Mr. Mayor.
Seconded by someone.
Again, me.
Okay, Councillor Mayor. Is there any discussion on this? Oh, if anyone wants to have a look at those, Ms. Thornton, it's been tabled. You can, someone put it in the middle there, maybe. I don't, no, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Tuxton. Put it in the middle there. If people want to look at it, by all means. Now, could I put that? All those in favour say aye. All those against say no. I think the ayes have it, and I declare it carried, and we go to the CCL 02322. Status report, update on developer contributions, environment planning and assessment. Councillor Lansbury, that's a matter for you. The environment planning? Oh.
Community and culture.
Community and culture. Okay, community and culture. Councillor Lou, is it the status report on developer contributions?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, advocacy. Thank you. Okay, Councillor Lou.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can I get it approved?
You move it?
Yeah, move it.
Second by Konjowski. There's no objection to this motion? No? Thank you. Well, I'll put it. All those in favour say aye. All those against say no. I declare the motion carried. Now we have a notice of motion from Councillor Nancy Liu for the draft budget 2022-2023, consideration of the nighttime economy activity.
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, good. Look, I'm happy for this to be taken as read. Be taken because it's a rather long one, unless Councillor Liu needs to talk to it.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I thank you for the director to prepare the comments. I think the motion itself is very clear. The reason is I want to bring this to the council meeting as a motion because we can recall these 2 years, Lunar New Year and Streets as Shared Spaces program. We already know it was very successful, so we wanted to see how it combined with the budget draft 2022 to 2023. The motion I wanted to move as printed in the paper to talk about some detail, background, because I have been advocating for this nighttime economy for years, and we understand council really plays a very important role in the night economy pattern. So council would be a provider, leader, collaborator, planner, and capacity builder and advocate. So that's why I wanted to bring this to council, and I urge the other councillors to consider to support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Liu. Is there a seconder? This is it, sorry. Oh, sorry, Councillor Konjowski. Glad you're there. Is anyone speaking against this? Okay, so there's no objectors to the motion. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. All those against say no. The ayes have it, and I declare the motion carried. We're now going to, we've done the leash dog parks, and we're, sorry? 23. 23. You're seconding it. Yeah, okay. Councillor Elmia and Councillor Simonton seconding it. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I was going to take this opportunity to actually withdraw the motion since you dealt with it in your Mayoral Minute, and I appreciate the fact that you actually brought it up in your Mayoral Minute. So, yeah. So, yeah, I'd like to, you dealt with it in your mayoral minute. No, this is probably the other one. Sorry, the LG New South Wales. So, yeah, Mr. Mayor, thank you for bringing that up in your mayoral minute, and therefore I'll withdraw this motion.
Moving a motion that way. If no one has an objection to it, I'll move it. All those in favour say aye. All those against say no. I declare the ayes have it. The next item is in Councillor move, and you're moving it, and seconded by Councillor Symington.
Yeah, it was withdrawn. So we didn't need to vote. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, so I'll move the LG New South Wales Special Conference motion, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Symington, for seconding that.
Thank you. Did you want to talk to Councillor Symington?
Yeah.
Did you want to speak to it,
Please, Mr. Mayor.
because it was quite an effort to get that through.
Yes. Yes. Well, with one of the motions, it most definitely was an effort to try and get that through, Mr. Mayor. But I think the good thing about it is that this council has had a good record of actually getting motions passed to LG New South Wales. I draw your attention to the motions, excuse me, that were passed in the last term of council, which were quite significant. One that we actually got briefed on, well, one that was actually mentioned in one of our briefings most recently, and that is to for LG New South Wales to negotiate with the state government and Department of, or the Office of Local Government in terms of the funding structure that has been around for 100 years, and I believe that that's in its processes. But coming back to the motions that were put forward, Mr. Mayor, I'm glad that we got both motions up. One motion that was put forward by Councillor Symington regarding representations on council, and I believe that was passed with a 68% majority, I think, from memory, with some amendments. Yeah, with an amendment, sorry. And then the motion that I presented to council and then we submitted, which was passed unanimously. So, Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to report back on that. I thank council staff for putting the work into it, presenting it to LG New South Wales, and the advocacy and the advocacy that yourself and other members of council did in trying to get those votes over the line as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mayor. Or Councillor Symington.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As Councillor has said, that the ban on developers and real estate agents was carried by majority at the local government conference. That was something that I was extremely proud of, and we should be proud of for our council. And a lot of councillors from other councils said to me how happy and appreciative they were, because it actually seems as if we're on the way to the transparency that the community wants us to go to. So it's now a policy platform for local government New South Wales, but more should happen. In its state parliament, there's currently, and you're probably not aware, on my board, in my office, there's a piece of legislation that only gets debated 90 minutes on a Thursday of the sitting day. And it's the opposition's private members bill. It's passed in the Legislative Council. It's the local government amendment bill, disqualification of civic office, which is banning real estate agents and developers from being on council. Lo and behold, debate has started, and all I've heard is the reasons why the government is not going to support this bill. So at the moment, it doesn't seem like change is going to happen at a state level. I only hope that in the future, I don't mind if the government takes these ideas and brings a legislation back in the form of their bill. But all I know is that until that happens, that the perception of the community is it's not going to improve for council or councillors. And so there needs to be a unified stance on this, unified, and I don't see why it doesn't happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Symington. I don't think anyone's going to be objecting to this motion, so I'll put it. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
All those against say no. I declare the motion carried, and we're now going on to, we've done the target climate action change, and we've got a potential transfer of public spaces and legacy program by Councillor Konjowski. Councillor Konjowski.
Seconded, Mr. Mayor.
Seconded by Councillor Elmere.
I have an amendment,
Yeah,
Mr.
yeah, I appreciate you have an amendment. Maybe Councillor Konjowski can speak first, and then we'll hear your amendment, Councillor Simon.
Thank you. So that's just following on the disappointment of the loss of Palm Court car park and the 3 years of hard work that went into that by staff, officers and councillors working on that project. So I'm seeking to have these funds committed to the Revitalise and Reconnect Riverwood project.
Councillor Konjowski. We have a seconder on that one, but do we, Councillor Simon, you indicated that you have an amendment.
My amendment is, in the event council does not proceed with the Palm Court project, council continues with the Hurstville Revitalisation project with the removal of the Palm Court component. B, council officers approach the Department of Planning, Industry and Environment to seek the necessary approval and variation to the deed to transfer the Public Spaces Legacy Program grant funding from the Palm Court to McMahon Court and Tracy Streets. C, the Mayor is to be in attendance for any discussions with the Department of Planning, Industry and Environment when seeking the approval and variation on the deed. Do
you, Councillor Konjowski, do you accept that?
No, I do not.
Do we have a seconder for Councillor Symington's motion?
I second that.
Seconded by Councillor Wang. We'll talk to the amendment. Councillor Symington.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I think you'll have to have an amendment to your motion. In the event the council does not proceed with the Palm Court project, council continues with the Hurstville Revitalisation. Well, how about, would you like to put in your amendment that the general manager investigates that in the event blah blah blah? But that's the same as
Councillor Symington, the concern is a procedural one with Part A. It does not identify a funding source. So in the event that council does not proceed with Palm Court project, council continue with the Hurstville Revitalisation project, which comprises 3 elements. With the removal of the Palm Court component, there's other components would have to identify a funding source, because the remainder of the Hurstville Revitalisation project, which is the McMahon Courtyard, is also grant funded from that same funding deed.
I accept that in the context of Councillor Konjowski's motion, which calls for the general manager to investigate and report. So if you've changed your motion to forget that the general manager, add to Part A, that the general manager investigate and report on the on the possible event, on the possible event that council does not proceed.
Councillor Catras, can I make a suggestion, and hopefully Councillor Symington and Councillor Konjaski will accept this? Can I suggest, Councillor? Oh, sorry,
yeah.
Can I suggest? I want to be closer to the mic. Can I suggest that we defer this notice of motion and the next two notices of motion until after we have the confidential component of the meeting tonight, because at that stage we'll then know what we're actually making a decision about, because currently we could be making a decision on this or indeed the next two motions without knowing how proceedings are going to be enacted following the confidential part of the motion. Is that fair and reasonable, Councillor Symington?
Fair and reasonable, but I'm not the one that made the presumption by putting the notice of the motion. Yeah, just want to say that. Yeah.
Are you accepting that, Councillor?
Yeah, no, sorry, my apologies, Councillor Symington. Sorry. Yeah, my apology, Councillor Symington. I did actually say I addressed to Councillor Symington and Councillor Konjaski, and indeed, you've highlighted the fact that I probably should also recognise, I think, Councillor Smerdley and Councillor Elmere. If they'd also accept that, I think that might keep things moving. Okay.
I can understand where you come from, Councillor Green, but I still have an issue with the fact that Councillor Konjaski, Councillor Amir, and Councillor Councillor Smerdley are basically moving the removal of the funds from Hurstville.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor, not at all.
What?
Not at all. We're asking for it to investigate.
Okay, well, I think that Councillor Symington could ask for the investigation too, if she so chooses.
Yes, sorry, Mr. Mayor. I've got no objection to what you're saying. All I'm saying is, could we do it in a different order, and that is to defer them at this stage. I'm not saying to remove them, far from it. I'm saying to defer them and come back after the confidential to actually have the conversations as are required. Otherwise, we could be having this same conversation 3 times and for no purpose.
Mr. Mayor,
Councillor Symington turns around and says, I want an investigation. It's
no, Miss.
Which way do you want to move?
If Councillor Konjaski withdraws his motion, if Councillor Konjaski withdraws his motion, there's nothing to, or defers his motion until later in the meeting, as Councillor Green suggests. There's nothing for Councillor Simon to amend. There's no business before the chair that she can amend. So it's not, with all due respect, you know, it's not a question for Councillor Symington. It's a question for Councillor Konjaski and Elmere and Smerdley to whether they want to put their business before the chair now or at the end of the meeting.
If they put motions forward, my view is that they've put motions forward. If they withdraw their motions, or if they're going to defer it, then Councillor...
Mr. Mayor, may I help you out again here, please? Can I actually move a change in the standing orders, which will see the following 3, I'm not going to give their numbers, whatever they are, un, deux, trois, that we move those till after the consideration of the confidential businesses on the paper, and I'm hoping that I'll have it. I've got a seconder to that change in the standing orders, Mr. Chairman, and that should solve.
Well, before I do that, I need to resolve Councillor Symington's situation, because she's moved an amendment. It's been seconded, and we need to discuss it. Now we've got another amendment on an amendment, and therefore we need to resolve what Councillor Simon wants to do.
The procedural motion moved by Councillor Green is the matter of business before the chair. If that's successful, the matter of business before the chair will no longer be NM 026-22, the motion which we're seeking to amend. It will be NM 029, because that'll be the next item of business once those 3 items are moved. When we get back to NM 26,
I'm still going back to the fact that
the issue is The reason Councillor Green is moving that amendment is these three motions may all lapse for want of their precondition not being met, pending the decision that's made in confidential. These all are predicated on not proceeding with the Palm Court car park, which we may or may not decide at a various stage later in this meeting. And if we do make that decision, these three motions may all lapse. If we make one decision, they are all very relevant. So that's the reason Councillor Green is moving his procedural motion.
Well, I appreciate that, but I'm still going back to the procedural motion because it's not actually a procedural motion. What it is a motion to defer. Councillor Simon,
with respect, what I'm doing is moving for a change in the standing orders, and all that is doing is bringing the next motion after Councillors Konjawski, Smedley and Elmirs, bringing all those items forward, discussing all those, including the confidential, and then bringing on Councillor Konjawski's motion with potentially Councillor Symington's amendment.
All right. Well, if that's the case, we will still hear those motions at the end of the confidential. Okay. I'll accept the procedural motion on that basis that we're actually going to go into confidential. We'll discuss confidential. Depending on what's happened in confidential, we will still go back to those motions. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, we have a procedural motion from Councillor Green. Do we have a seconder?
Yeah, Councillor
Teague to defer notice of motion 026, 027 and 028 until after the matter on Palm Court in confidential, being number CCL 012A-22 after that is considered.
Okay, thank you for that. Sorry? We need to, yeah. I will put that. All those in favour say aye. Aye. All those against say no.
No.
Division. I'll have a division on it, yes. All those in favour of that procedural motion say yes. Yes. All those against it say no.
No.
Okay, let's have a show of hands. Well, basically for yes with the procedural motion. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And for no on the procedural motion, could you put up your hands? And we've got 3 against. For who's? There's only 5. There's only 4 hands up. There's 5, yeah. 5.
Mr. Mayor, we have Konjawski, Liu, Smedley, Stratokopoulos, Elmir against 5.
Okay. I declare the motion. Won. Now we will deal with that later. We have a notice of motion now from Deputy Mayor Councillor Lansbury. Councillor Lansbury, would you like to talk to that? Or just move it?
We've got 029 in my name, I think is the next item on the agenda, and I so move.
Sorry?
029, the investigation of the pedestrian crossing is the next item.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, okay. Thank you, Councillor Teague, for reminding me. Has anyone got any objections to that? Seconded by Councillor Konjawski. Has anyone got any objections to that?
I'd just like to make.
Sorry? I've got a mover in Councillor Teague. I have a seconder in Councillor Konjawski. Has anyone, just in case you can't hear me, has anyone got an objection to it?
I'd like to speak on it.
Okay, Councillor Teague, Councillor Konjawski.
Thank you, and thank you very much for that that notice of motion. I would just like to make a comment or ask the councillors if they have any future issues with any of the traffic items in our LGA, they direct it to the traffic committee.
Thank you, Councillor Konjawski. As there's no objections to that, I'll put it. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
All those against say no. I declare it carried. Now, the next one is in the name of Deputy Mayor Councillor Lansbury.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Jamison.
I do actually have a small amendment to it, Mr. Mayor, which I've forwarded before, so hopefully it might be available on the screen. But it's what appears on paper becomes part A, and I have a part B, which is that consideration be given to allocating $70,000 in the 2022-23 budget to obtain the data and update growth forecasts for Georges River LGA.
Is that acceptable to Councillor Jamieson? Did you want to talk to it, Councillor?
I will speak to it briefly, Mr. Mayor. I have to be quite careful with my remarks because it does actually flow on from a discussion at the Environment and Planning Committee last fortnight around the item on which you declared an interest. So I'll speak in very general terms about it. What it comes from really is the fact that we've all just gone through 2 years of a pandemic, and COVID has changed much about how we do things. Many of us are still working at home 2 years later, and I for one won't be returning to the office full time. I can tell anecdotally that there is a lot less traffic parked near the station for people to commute, near me anyway. People are staying close to home. There will be a bit of a hybrid version of people returning to the CBD and other places where they work all over the city, I guess. But we do need to rethink how we do things. There's also been reports again recently that we have an oversupply of apartments, and even within the LGA, our own LGA of Hurstville, in Hurstville, we have a drop in demand for apartment living. People have decided during COVID that they do actually need more space around them, so we might need to rethink our housing targets and our job targets, because we are doing things very differently. We're literally 2 years into the pandemic now. It was only this week that we sort of reached that anniversary of when the world kind of shut down in Sydney anyway, and New South Wales, where we all were working from home. And that has changed the demand on what we require for our local businesses. And again, I'm trying to be really careful with my comments because I don't want to speak of the item that you needed to excuse yourself from, Mr. Mayor. It's kind of difficult that things have changed. We need to get the updated data. Yes, we can get ABS statistics in probably September, but I think so much of what our council officers do is going to depend going forward on the sort of data that is specific for our LGA. And until we actually talk to the people that actually live and work here and see what sort of demand we're going to have on small business, commercial space, housing, etc., that is going to inform things like some very big projects that are going to be coming back to us as councillors in the coming months, such as the Mortdale Master Plan, the Beverly Hills Master Plan, and many other master plans and projects that will be coming before us. So I'd just like to seek support of the councillors to support this in order to help our staff do their job more effectively and efficiently by having access to the data sooner rather than waiting for a more general sense of data from the ABS and more targeted information that's relevant to our LGA and how it's going to be effective going forward with our housing and job targets. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lansbury. I believe that there is no objection to the motion. Are there any objections? Objection?
Not an objection, Mr. Mayor. A couple of questions.
Okay, well, let's ask the questions.
Mr. Mayor, I'm just curious, through you or maybe to Councillor Lansbury, how we got to the $70,000 mark in terms of, where consideration be given to allocating $70,000 in the budget. Is that so there's a direct mechanism that we get to the $70,000 mark, and also with that, does that then actually, no, I'll leave that question for later, Mr. Mayor. I'll leave it as it is.
Did you still have a question though? Did you?
No,
no questions. Okay,
yeah.
fair enough.
Sorry. Yeah, no, it's in. You just.
Yeah, I'll put the motion. Councillor Ted, did you want to?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I'm just. I certainly commend Councillor Lansbury's motion. It's clear that we need to rely on data. My concern is with Section B. I've worked with data a lot in my line of work, and when you look at the report that's been provided by the New South Wales government, they're predicting, and again, this is the work that's done by the bureaucrats based on the information that's acquired by the ABS, and they're expecting to update that this year. And they're going to update that, no doubt, on the back of the census data that's going to come out. Now, the way that these things work is our consultants, I know I'm not a demographer, but I do work a lot with data, is they're not going to be, like, the information that's available in the public domain and the estimates are based on data that has to come out. Like, it has to be provided for the demographers to work their magic on it. And that information that the current projections are based on is the last census. And any work that's going to be done by any demographers is going to be based on that same group of data that the New South Wales government report's based on. Now, the New South Wales government's going to report going to, for free, update that information for us later this year. And they're not just going to update that for us, they're going to update that for the New South Wales government. So whatever we think about what our housing targets should be is largely irrelevant, because it's really up to the New South Wales government to tell us what they think our housing targets are and they think our business targets are, because those are the targets we have to meet, whether we agree with them or not. And so we're spending, I'm worried, $70,000 of ratepayers' money that's either going to be a report based on the same data that all the publicly available reporting is on, or will arrive in December once the September data comes out at roughly the same time the free reports are going to arrive. So my concern, councillors, is that we're putting ourselves in a situation where we're asking for a $70,000 report without really any clear idea about how exactly that's going to help us in any material way in the decisions we've got to make before the final report comes out in December, and which again won't matter if the New South Wales government decides that their housing and job targets are going to be unchanged, or if they change in a way that our demography report doesn't predict, right? So that would be my only concern with Section B. I completely support Section A. We do need information. I know our staff are working on this stuff all the time, but look, the 2020 report that was done in December 2020 predicted its projections were based on Australia's international borders opening up in January of 22. Well, that's what they did. You know, so the reports that were prepared in December 2020 has so far pretty accurately represented what's happened and is a reasonable guess, you know, big dips in international migration. These are the numbers that Josh Frydenberg's talking about, because he doesn't have any more up-to-date information than this, because all that information's out there in the public domain. So my concern, councillors, would be with Part B. I'll foreshadow a motion to remove Part B and to keep Part A, because I do really support the work that Councillor Lansbury is doing here, but I'm worried about spending ratepayers' money on a report that I think could be based on outdated data, and really we'll either have to wait, and it just isn't a good use of ratepayers' money.
Is there any further discussion? Councillor Lansbury, I'm not sure if Councillor Tegg was actually saying he'd like to make an amendment. He's foreshadowed.
I foreshadowed a motion. Sorry. I foreshadowed a motion because Councillor Lansbury clearly wants B in. She put it in herself, and so I respect that that's her desire. So I'm just going to foreshadow a motion that will be identical, will just be Part A. So if this motion's defeated, I would seek to re-put the motion with Part B removed.
Mr. Mayor, can I just...
So, Councillor...
Yeah, sorry. Look, I'm following on basically the same tact as Councillor Tegg, and again, I fully support Councillor Lansbury. This is in the 22-23 budget, which, as we know, starts as of the 1st of July. We've been told earlier tonight that we're talking about figures that will potentially come out in September. And one of the criticisms that councils, not just this council, but councils often get, I would look at your consultancy budget. Now, we went through this whole process last year, and I'm sure we'll continue to go through it again this year, where we'll see that a significant component of our consultancy budget is tied to things we have to do. Basically, reports that are required by Office of Local Government, state government departments, etc. And there's also sometimes significant work that has to be done by consultants because we haven't got the internal expertise. I'm not sure how we could, and I'm happy to stand up and support that at any time, as I've done in the past, for the spending of those consultancy figures, because they are, as I say, required. But I'm not sure that, particularly after we've heard that the information will be available in 3 months' time, that we could, in all good grace, stand up and say, oh, we're going to spend $70,000, and 3 months later it was going to be used. We'd have great difficulty, I believe, defending that. So, like Councillor Tegg, happy to support Section A, but for the sake of 3 months and the figures being provided gratis, I think it's a reasonable expectation to leave B out.
Councillor Lansbury, do you wish to leave it like that, or do you wish to?
I'll just very briefly, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Okay, thank you to Councillor Tegg and Councillor Green, and I just would like to highlight the fact that consideration be given to allocating money in the budget. As we all know, there's a finite pot of money and it's not going to go everywhere. We've always challenged some of the spending on consultants, but some consultancy reports are really worth the money, I think. And when we're trying to predict the future of what we need for our LGA and provide analysis specific to our LGA for our staff so that they can help provide reports and whatever else they need to do for us as councillors, this is only going to assist them. Again, I'm trying to, it's difficult because I need to be careful because of the item that you've declared the interest in. So again, I'm trying to speak in very, very general terms. Can I just ask you to focus on the fact that it includes a consideration be given to it in the budget? I know we'll probably all be having fights over what we need to put in and what we need to put out, but this is really a really important thing, councillors, that we need to include to help. It would underpin so much of what our planning staff do to have access to these sorts of figures. The ones that the ABS provides are very general. They're not specific to our LGA. And a consultant that is tailored to the needs of our LGA, which is very different. You know, we always said that the difference between Hurstville and Cogra before we were amalgamated was culturally very different. We're now one big happy family, but it's very different to Bayside and to Canterbury, Bankstown and to Sutherland. The needs and requirements of our LGA are very different. And I think that it would be great if we could consider, and I would like to, you know, again, it's consideration being given to it. I'm not committing the council to doing it now, but I'm thinking this is something that would greatly assist our staff. And as we know, we like to assist our staff to do their jobs better because it helps all of us and it helps our residents in the long run. So, you know, please consider supporting this. And yeah, I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Councillor Mayor, I'm sorry, your question. Okay.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Just a question to the director, possibly, on whether they are actually requiring new data. Do they need that new data urgently?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, Councillor Almir, you all are correct. Of course, we are going to get the data from the census, and that covers the whole state. However, what that data doesn't do, and what we then do, is then we work through with a company that specialises in demographics. We also population. We also work with a company. We ask for work specifically relating to jobs. And what we do is we then ask a number of questions that are specific to Georges River. And what does that mean? And we might break it down into centres. We might break it down into suburbs. What does it mean in relation to the impact of COVID and the impact of the pandemic, immigration, birth rates, moving in and out of the LGA? So what a study does that we do, as I say, specific to us, gives us the information that we then can talk with you about how we move on meeting our jobs and housing targets. And we really know what they are because they're done specifically for us and where they may occur across the LGA. But as I say, yes, we, as Councillor Green and Councillor Tegg said, yes, it's all based on that broader information. But what we're doing with such a study is bringing it down to the local level, which helps us and helps you in our decision making.
Councillor Neer, does that yeah, okay. All right. Well, I think that's about as. I think that I'll take that last discussion from Councillor Lansbury as the right of reply, and I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. All those against say no. I declare it carried unanimously. We'll now go to another one, I think, by Councillor Lansbury. Agendas for councillor briefing. You're moving that, Councillor Lansbury?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will move as it appears on the business paper. If I can get a seconder, I'll speak briefly to it.
Councillor Ball.
I'm happy to second that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Mayor. The reason I put this on here is because the workshops and briefings that we have are quite formal in their structure. They're not something that is an informal briefing. We're all sort of sitting around just having a bit of a chat. It's actually very formal. There's an attendance sheet. If we're doing them online, we have cameras on and it's recorded, and every comment that we make is recorded, noted down and recorded. So therefore I think that it's only appropriate that us as councillors are fully informed on not only what's going to be on the agenda, but we should be provided wherever possible advanced reading so that we can actually get our heads around something. We had a recent workshop, without going into too much detail, which the newer councillors wouldn't have been aware of because we discussed it last year. It was made quite difficult for them because for some of them, and they told me this later, it was the first that they'd heard of it, and it's quite difficult for us as councillors to be providing guidance or feedback or direction to council officers about items if it's the first that we know about it is we see an agenda item at 4 o'clock on the Monday. Some time ago I requested that we might be able to allocate some additional training to the members of the Environment and Planning Committee because most members were new councillors and Councillor Teague hadn't sat on that committee before. And unfortunately, we didn't have time to allocate any additional training specific to Georges River because our workshop schedule is booked out to July. So the information's there. I'm not asking for forensic detail. I just think it would be great to know in advance what's on the Monday night, and if there's any advanced material that we can be provided with, a bit of background material, particularly when it's information that maybe the first time a councillor may come across it is when it's being discussed online. And as we know, it would be great when we actually do come back into the council chamber to discuss or to have our workshops and briefings in face. You achieve a lot more, I think. People can interact a lot better. It's a little bit stilted when you do it online, but it's a pretty simple quest. If the information can be made available to us, at the very least, we've got a couple of days to read it. We have our business papers ahead of time. We have to make decisions on these things, and you know, if it can be done, that would be great. I understand from time to time a consultant may not provide their information till the Monday, but let us know on the Friday what we're going to be talking about on the Monday. It should be quite transparent. So that's it. I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lansbury. Is there any objection to this motion? Is there any as there's no objection, I'll put it. All those in favour say aye. All those against say no. I declare the motion carried. I now have a motion from Councillor Simon during public forum participation.
Thank you,
Councillor Simon.
Mr. Mayor. I'm amending my motion, and Ms. Thornton has that those amendments. Are they on the screen?
Sorry?
They will be in just one moment.
Okay, I'll start reading it out. A, that written submissions received as part of the public participation component of all council meetings required to be read out by a council officer will be circulated to all councillors prior to 2 p.m. on the day of the meeting. B, all written submissions must be assessed for compliance with the Code of Meeting Practice and Code of Conduct. C, these changes will continue until the extension of the COVID-19 pandemic meeting arrangements conclude on the 30th of June 2022. Council will then revert back to the public providing in-person submissions, I hope. Okay, do I have a second?
Happy to second.
Has everybody digested that? Have any question? Could you? Yeah, we could put it on the screen. Well, basically, it says that written submissions received as part of the public participation component of all council members required to be read out by the council officer will be circulated to all councillors prior to 2 p.m. on the day of the meeting. All written submissions must be assessed for compliance with the Code of Meeting Practice and Code of Conduct, and these changes will continue until, excuse me, could we just leave it there? Sorry, leave it in my place. These changes will continue until the extension of the COVID-19 pandemic meeting arrangements conclude on the 30th of June 2022. Council will then revert back to the public providing in-person submissions.
A, B and C.
Do we have a seconder?
Is it A, B and C? I think it's A, B and C.
Okay, Councillor Ball, I think it was.
Yeah.
Councillor Symington.
Okay, councillors, this motion comes about after the extraordinary meeting that was held on the 7th of March. I actually couldn't believe what I was hearing when that submission was read out from Ian Brown. I was gobsmacked. I just couldn't believe it, and then the Mayor had to stop it. I was under the impression that written submissions had to meet the Code of Meeting Practice. Written submissions impugning the character of the Mayor of Georges River Council, any councillor for that matter, any state member, any federal member, whether it be Labor, Liberal, Independent or Green, it shouldn't happen. It shouldn't take place in our public forum. I consider this to be a bipartisan motion, and actually in our Code of Meeting Practice in clause 3.16, it states when addressing council, speakers at public forums must comply with this code and all other relevant codes, policies and procedures. Speakers must refrain in engaging in disorderly conduct, publicly alleging breaches of the council code of conduct, or making other potentially defamatory statements. I make the assumption this applies to the written submissions as well. Considering when members of the public request to speak at a council meeting, they actually have to agree to abide by the Code of Meeting Practice when they make the application online. And I'll table that. That's on our website. It says they agree to the Code of Meeting Practice. So the rationale of not vetting submissions for possible breaches doesn't make sense to me. I searched through the business papers to try and locate where changes have been made to stop reviews of submissions when the council audiovisual technology was upgraded. The only two resolutions that I found were one from the former councillor Hindi, which was to allow members of the public to actually participate in audiovisual part when they couldn't come to the chamber, and one from Councillor Teague, which was about reordering business, which made a whole lot of sense. So the public didn't have to wait to see the results of what they'd spoken on. I note the director's comments in relation to no longer reviewing written submissions and essentially letting everything through, no matter what's said in the submission. I don't recollect a change in policy being conveyed to councillors. I thought changes in policy had to happen via resolution. As you can see, I'm totally perplexed by this whole situation. And I thought we had policies that we abided by them and we upheld them. And this leading up to this council meeting, there's been all these people telling me about policy in relation to environmental planning. That policy, we need policy. We need to have policy because we've got to, something to follow. Well, why isn't this policy being followed? So by supporting me in those submissions have to be vetted to see if they follow the Code of Meeting Practice, you're actually upholding the integrity of council. So I hope you support this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Symington. Does anybody want to speak against the motion? Councillor Green.
I just want to confirm and clarify that, and I fully support Councillor Symington in terms of comments about all the groups that she listed, but it also applies to staff because we've seen on many occasions people from the community making indiscriminate and completely outrageous comments in terms of what the staff have done as well. And so I support Councillor Simon, but I think it's we must highlight the fact that our staff deserve that protection as well.
How do you agree, Councillor Green? Councillor Teague, are you speaking against? Or
I've just got a request of the mover.
Yeah.
I really like the new motion that's been put up, particularly A and B. My only concern is with Part C. I actually like that we've been able to hear from more people and people who might not be able to attend in person for whatever reason. I know that while the rules might conclude on the 30th of June, or they might not, often these things get extended, as we've seen over the last couple of years. In either case, I particularly with these safeguards put in place by Parts A and B of the motion, I don't mind hearing from written submissions. I think it gives a great number of people an opportunity to have their 2 cents, people who can't turn up on a Monday, people who might not be, sort of able to attend for childcare or whatever reason, who might want to attend remotely or who might want to attend just with a written submission, people who might be a bit shy. Any number of reasons why people might want to put in a written submission or attend remotely. Those are things I think we should try and keep, because I think the more people we hear from, the better. And so while I certainly completely support A and B, my only reservation that I'm just asking Councillor Simon if she would consider removing Part C, because I think that would limit I believe that intentionally. I don't think it was her intention at all, but just obviously with the reaction to what happened last time, is that we shouldn't necessarily prejudge that is what our council wants to do, which is to go back to only allowing in-person submissions in future. So that's my my question through you, Mr. Chair, to the mirror of the motion.
Councillor Simon, and that's a question to you.
It's related to this.
Yeah, yes, and then I'll ask one question as well.
Can I just do this?
Yeah, well, unfortunately, it's Councillor Simonton's turn to ask.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, through to the General Manager, to do what Councillor Tegg has said, would that involve another separate motion to amend the Code of Meeting Practice? Or can we just do this here?
Mr. Mayor, there are a current set of orders and circulars from OLG that vary our Code of Meeting Practice up until the 30th of June, and they involve in-person attendance by councillors. The Office of Local Government does not recommend that councils hold a public forum as part of their council meetings, and therefore the Model Code of Practice places no restriction on the council as to the method of attendance by speakers, because they don't provide for mandatory or otherwise attendance. They, in fact, recommend against holding public forums as part of a meeting. So when it comes to in-person attendance by speakers, it's up to the council to amend their Code of Meeting Practice to approve the means by which they may attend. Now, up until this point in time, we've had the COVID-19 delegation, which allowed us to amend the method of attendance. And so the council has allowed remote attendance for not only councillors, of course, through the circular, but separately through the resolution of council, it has permitted under the COVID delegation remote attendance by speakers. So, and that has changed from time to time in terms of also allowing people to come back in person when the pandemic has permitted. So I think we need to be careful to separate the mandatory method of attendance for councillors and the general manager, and then there is a discretionary attendance in person by staff and by the public. So we would require longer term amendment with the requisite public notification to the Code of Meeting Practice. In the short term, what I suggest the council does is, well, my request to Councillor Symington would be to change the 2 p.m. deadline. That's virtually impossible for us to meet. You heard earlier from a speaker who was still trying to lodge copies of submissions at 5:04 p.m, which I'll note for the record I have not received. But in order to assist the staff, 4 p.m. is probably better in terms of circulating submissions. But once again, the council can resolve, thank you, the council can resolve pretty much in terms of the public forum to take an interim policy position under the COVID delegation that's been extended to the Mayor and to myself until such time as it adopts a new version of the Code of Meeting Practice. So it's by way of explanation to the public who may be watching, that's how we have got to this point. So you are both right. You can both amend via a resolution of council and provide for an interim solution until some future point in time. However, you cannot do that for yourselves, for councillor attendance, only for the public component.
Thank you.
I'm happy to accept the amendment from councillor.
Well, Councillor Mayor had a question, and then we could.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, actually was brought up by the General Manager and subsequently accepted by Councillor Symington. My question was, would we be able to meet that 2 p.m. deadline, which has now been changed to 4 p.m, which I think if the General Manager and staff are capable of doing that, then that's fine. That was my question.
Councillor Simon, there's been a couple of amendments referred to just now by Councillor Tegg and also by the General Manager. Do you accept any of the amendments?
No, I accept both, Mr. Mayor.
Which one do you accept, sorry?
Both.
Oh, okay. So you accept the deletion of C?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
And of course 4 p.m. Councillor Borg, do you accept that?
Yes.
Okay. I've just got another possible amendment that councillors may wish to consider to this motion, Councillor Symington and Councillor Borg. Would you like to just indicate that?
Mr Mayor, councillors may be aware that we are in the process of updating our code of meeting practice now. Over the past 12 months, the council has introduced various resolutions to amend the code. That code is due for reporting to the April meeting of council or Finance and Governance Committee. Could I suggest to Councillor Symington that she includes another part to her motion that addresses more formally the matter of in-person or remote attendance by the public during the council forum, because we have no resolution that deals with that matter at the moment, and will give the staff some very good assistance and guidance as to whether the council was willing to entertain that provision of remote attendance for speakers in the future based on matters of disability, carers, illness, etc. Because at the moment the council does not have any resolution that long term addresses whether or not it would permit speakers to attend remotely. So if I could encourage the councillors to consider amendment to that effect, and we can incorporate in the updated code that's coming up next month.
Thank you.
Councillor
Mayor, I've just had a quick chat with Councillor Symington. She was happy for me to move an amendment to that effect to this motion. So to keep what's already on the board there, that allows for blended attendance by members of the public, including by video link or written submission.
Are you happy with that, Councillor Simon?
Yes, I am, Mr Mayor.
Is that the amendment, or have you got something else that's got to happen? Sorry? Okay.
Can I just ask a question, Mr Mayor?
Could we just hold on? There's something happening here. I think we need to get the amendment up, and because the sorry,
I don't think Councillor Ball can read those.
I can now. They fixed it up. Thank you, Councillor Teague. I can see it now.
Okay. Is that acceptable to Councillor Simon and Councillor Ball?
Yes, Mr Mayor.
I just have a question with item C.
Ask the question, yeah.
Just with item C, that when the public forum provisions are reviewed in the code of meeting practice, that points A and B would be included in that review. I just wanted to check if that was assumed that would be done, or does item C need to state that those conditions that are in part A and B would also form the review of the code of meeting practice?
Yeah.
Mr Mayor, the officers will review all of the resolutions of council. If this becomes a resolution of council, it will be reviewed.
Councillor Borg, are you happy with that?
Yep, I'm happy with that. Thank you.
Well, is there any objection to this motion? Okay, I'll put it. All those in favour say aye. Aye. All those against say no. I declare it carried unanimously. Now we've got questions on notice. I am going to. There's no motions in this. I'm going to accept the fact that the questions have been answered. I won't take any discussions on them because the answers are there, unless someone has a further question or, Councillor Marnie, did you want to discuss something?
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Just on a few of these questions, actually, and I thank the staff for providing the answers within a short time frame. But if we go to QWN 01422 about the Gannons Park water harvesting scheme, if you read out question 4, it says, the question was, when did council repurpose $650,000 of the grant made to remediate the Open Bowling Club site at Gannons Park, and what effect did the redirection of that grant have on the progress of works at the Open Bowling Club site? The officer's response to question 4 is, quote, council did not repurpose $650,000 of the grant made to remediate the former Open Bowling Club site. And it goes on to say this allegation has been raised previously and answered, unquote. On 8th of March 2021, Mark Curry MP's office wrote to me and said, Mark contacted the Minister for Local Government's office regarding this matter and has been provided the following information. Council advised that $650,000 of the Oakley Bowling Club $900,000 allocation was repurposed in 2020/21 to supplement funds received in 2020/21 in order to complete the Gannons Park project, unquote. I was just asking if this, could this apparent contradiction please be clarified?
Could you just to clarify that amongst the councillors, because they might want be sure. You said that you've got a letter, or
I've got an email from Mark Curry, actually.
A letter from Mark Curry?
An email dated 8th of March.
Have you got those there?
Yes, I do.
Would you like to table them? Sure. Well,
Mr. Mayor, I'm happy to take that on notice without viewing the email and what has apparently been quoted from council to the minister back to the Mark Curry.
Was it Mark Curry?
It's three parts removed, so I'm unable to answer that question at the moment. But I am aware that we've had several discussions with the local member about the Oakley Bowling Club site, and I can guarantee you that the $900,000 odd that we received for that site has gone absolutely nowhere and still sits in the grant reserve for that site. So residents can rest assured that that money is sitting there available and is, I believe, included in the draft capital works budget that will be put in front of the councillors soon to commence stage one, the next stage of the Oakley Bowling Club site, which I call the above ground works, the exciting stuff, not the below ground works, which is harder to see where you're getting your value for money. But councillors can rest assured that that grant money is absolutely quarantined for that site.
Councillor Marnie, would you be happy with a commitment from the General Manager to investigate whatever has been tabled?
Mr. Mayor, if I may, can I just confirm that Councillor Marnie is tabling this to be tabled at tonight's meeting, and if he could forward the original to staff to follow up?
Yes, Mr.
Mayor, just one moment. I'll clarify that we're not going to breach the HIPAA Act or the Personal Privacy Protection Information Act by tabling this.
Mr. Mayor,
yes.
is the General Manager able to do that as she's standing right there?
Mr. Mayor, I can already tell you that it contains private contact details for the electorate office. My preference would be that the staff just deal with this separately and publish the response on the hub and in a manner that can be distributed to the public.
Are you satisfied with that?
Rather than tabling it tonight, I'm not convinced that that wouldn't breach the Privacy Act.
Yes, thank you. Would you like me to email it through later, or?
Sorry?
Should I email it through later?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, that was QWN 01422. There's also QWN 01622 boarding houses. I was just wondering if there's a likely completion date for the proposed report.
Also, I didn't quite. The Director, Ms. Bishop.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, Councillor Marnie, it will take us some months to do this work, and as I say, as indicated, it's not quite as straightforward as running a report. We have to do some extensive investigation into it. I need to allocate the resources to it, so I'm probably looking at 4 to 6 months, something like that. Thank you. Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Marnie, you're okay with that? Is there anything else?
Thank you. Just one more. QWN 017 22 public participation. I'd like to applaud Council's duty of care in all these risk mitigation measures detailed in the report, but I'd like to ask whether they're also going to be applied to all other council-owned venues such as libraries, customer service centres, sports facilities, pools and child mining centres. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, all of those venues have their own separate COVID-19 safety plans. So the risk is assessed pretty much on a fortnightly basis, and those COVID-19 safety plans are updated. So our face-to-face customer service centres are subject to a different risk assessment and a different safety plan to the Civic Centre, for example. So we deal with each of those venues on a site-by-site basis. Bearing in mind the nature of the activity provided and the level of interaction that must be undertaken. Obviously, things like childcare centres, the staff there are unable to work from home, and wearing of masks has frightened the children. It's been reported. So wherever possible, we customise the COVID-19 safety plan to have regard to the risk, but also the nature of the business being provided at that venue.
That's it, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
This is a question from Councillor Amir. I'd like to partly answer it too. Anyone that wants to have a look at my diary, by all means. Anyone that wants details of what I do during the day, by all means, apart from any personal stuff that I do. But having said all that, I'm happy if it's necessary, and I don't want to put too much of a load on the council officers for doing what Councillor Green did in the past as the mayor. I will say, however, don't underestimate what they do, what the mayor does, as Councillor Green will testify to. There is a lot of work that's been done, but I'm happy to give you a whole schedule of what's to be done. So if you require it, come and ask for it and you'll get it. Okay? Sorry? Oh, didn't you? Yeah. I sit around sleeping all day. Anyway. Councillor, you've got a question, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate the fact that you'll be providing that information on being asked. But a question to you, Mr. Mayor, is the information in previous times would be provided to us without being asked, and just wondering if you would be open to the idea of keeping that open to the community as well, and therefore publishing it on the website.
I think I can open it up to the councillors, but I'm not sure if the whole of the community needs to know what I do.
You are there.
If they want the information, they can get it. Yeah. I think that's only fair. That there are certain things that might be commercial in confidence. I might meet with people that, you know, and meet within the council and the mayoral office. And my fear is that if you put a one-line thing there saying, I just met with Costa Zoo or Joe Blogs or somewhere, they think, oh, look what he's doing. He's meeting with a huge developer or something or other, which will create unnecessary angst to the community. And then I'd have to provide a full report as to how, how can I say, as to how innocuous the meeting was. And that could take pages. So if I'm meeting with someone which is commercially in confidence, or if I'm meeting with someone that that wants to put something to me that I reject, putting a one-line item that I've met with somebody, and then finding that, and then discussing the whole circumstances behind that meeting, and then indicating that I've rejected anyway, I don't think that that's an imposition that I need to put on the staff. So if anyone wants any I will give you a schedule. I'm happy to provide it to the councillors, but if you require any detailed information as to what was said, what was done, because I do keep good records of what I do at meetings, and I do have council officers come in on the meetings to take notes in the file. Okay, does that answer your question?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. It's great to hear that some council staff are attending with you, those, because I could completely appreciate the fact that it'd be hard for you to be able to keep notes while you're also discussing, and it'd be also quite difficult in terms of reaching your next meeting to write notes straight after. So it's good to hear that you do have council staff attending with you those meetings and writing notes. I was merely just seeking your willingness to be transparent and therefore allow the community to know that. And I by no means.
Is this a point of order, Mr. Mayor? Is this a question on the question?
Sorry.
Point
No,
of order.
there's a point of order from Councillor Simington.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Almeida said you've been transparent as if you're not transparent. I'm sorry, but that's wrong. The way you phrased that was incorrect. No, that's not the way it came across.
Well, I appreciate your point of order.
Mr. Mayor, if there was any offence taken, I'll withdraw it. What I intended was that this is an effort to be more transparent, Mr. Mayor. And the question is, before I get called on a point of order, is that if you would be open to sharing just a line item that Mayor Nick Catras met with so-and-so regarding so-and-so, and it's simple as that. I think this is a great opportunity to show our transparency to the community.
And if any community member would like any information on who I meet and the details of that, they can apply for it, because the number of meetings I have per week are, quite significant. Councillor, sorry,
Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Borg, I think you had a question.
I was just raising a point, Mr. Mayor, that Councillor Elmy sounded like he was possibly trying to move a motion on this item rather than just asking a question on the question with notice. So,
yeah, that's fair enough. I appreciate what you're saying, Councillor Borg, but I actually got to the situation of actually addressing this issue because I feel that it's really a question to me rather than a question to the staff. The staff can only deal with the legalities of what I'm supposed to be doing, but I've got to deal with what involves me. Councillor,
I have two questions, Mr. Mayor. The first one through you to Councillor Green.
Yeah.
Councillor Green, in your 4 years as Mayor, did you provide the information that Councillor Almeida is asking Mayor Catras to provide now?
I provided the information to the councillors. Yeah, and I wasn't trying to make a noose for every other mayor to follow me. And it talks about what's the expenses policy. The only expense I ever had was for my mobile phone, because I always brought my own iPad, laptop, whatever. Because so it's horses for courses. And what you do, it's what you do. And to be fair to Councillor Catras, he's fulfilling his legal obligations and obviously wants to be transparent, and I compliment him for that, but he shouldn't have to wear a noose worn by me.
Another question to you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, when you became Mayor, it's a big situation, lots of things to do. Were you advised that you needed to provide this information that had previously been a regular occurrence for Councillor Green? Was that on your agenda to provide?
I'm happy to answer that question for you, Councillor Catras. That was a personal decision taken by me just to provide all the councillors with information. There is no requirement. And as I say, I was happy to undertake that. And I tried not to overburden staff with it because I used to go through the diary myself and send all that information to Nellie at that stage or whoever was acting in that capacity.
Thank you, Councillor Green. I think Councillor Simington, no, I wasn't advised. But
so what I'm trying to point out is you're not ignoring an undertaking that you're supposed to do.
No, I'm not. I'm not ignoring an undertaking. I have no issue with telling people what I do, with exception. Okay. Look, we've finished all that. Does anybody? There's nothing else to be discussed on the.
Excuse me. Yeah,
Councillor
Mr. Mayor.
Lou, yes, Councillor Lou.
I thank you, Mr. Mayor, for the opportunity. I'm not following the last question. I understand Mr. Mayor already said under these questions with notice, the directors, the council already provided with answers to each questions, but I just want to emphasize on my question with notice, operational planning for extreme weather conditions, because we have been suffering and experiencing this extreme weather for the last couple of weeks.
Councillor Liu,
Yeah,
if I allow you to do this,
Yeah.
I'm going to allow everybody to put a question through to talk on their question.
Yes.
I really appreciate if you could just ask a question on the answer
no,
to the question.
Yeah.
And not to explain what you're doing, just to ask a question
Okay.
on something that
If
wasn't answered. I appreciate that it's great to give everybody a chance to get up on the soapbox, to get up and indicate what they want to say. But I must say, Councillor Liu, I cannot give 15 councillors 15 questions.
Okay.
Okay, so please ask a question. Otherwise, thank you.
Yeah. For the directors, thank you for your team. Actually, I understand the city operational team behind the scene. Your team done a great job. Yeah. We sitting in under the shelter, under the roof. We might don't know what's happening behind the scenes. So that's why I'm asking this question. I want to make sure the community we have all of these special measures in place to make sure the community is safe.
Thank you,
Secondly,
Councillor Liu. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to
that's not the question,
terminate
but
your
I really
address
want to say
to the
thank you.
council, because I think I just what I
Yeah,
just said. If you're going to address the questions to give a speech, I've taken a policy where you don't address the questions to give a speech. You can have another question. Now, if you want to follow on with a question, fine. Otherwise, I'm sorry, no more discussion.
I finished what I'm saying already.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the chance, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
So let's move on, councillors.
I'll
We're
move
now.
that the council move to closed session. And
Yes, thank you, Councillor Green. A seconder, Councillor Elmere. Thank you. Oh, that was ridiculous. Come on.
Yeah.
Councillors, we have a procedure to move into closed session. At this point in time, the meeting will move into committee of the whole to allow the consideration of a matter in closed session in accordance with Section 10A of the Local Government Act 1993. That is in accordance with Section 10A Clause 2 of the Local Government Act 1993. Council enter a closed session to discuss CCL 011A 22-247 Princess Highway, Carlton, Old Cogra Inn, and CCL 012A Hurstville Revitalisation Project, Public Spaces Legacy Project. And I think we've already got a motion and a seconder to move into closed session. So could the council officers process that aspect of it? And if you want to, I'll give you a 2-minute. Oh, can we have a vote on that? Aye. So it's unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Thank you, councillors. Can we have a...
Mr. Mayor, I move that we adopt the report of the closed session of council.
Yeah, and can we have not the report, but can we have the motion that was agreed to appeared in the minutes?
Councillor Green, did you second that? Yes. And which things vote now?
Okay, I will put it. All those in favour say aye. Aye. All those against say no. The vote was unanimous.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we defer items. I move that we defer items NM 026, 027, and 028.
Thank you, Councillor Tegg.
Extraordinary council meeting on the 4th of April.
Yeah, the first one.
Second that.
The first one was Councillor Konjalski. There's NM 02622. I think the three of them could probably be moved.
Mr Mayor, Councillor Teague moves those 3 notices of motion in globo, so only 1 vote is required.
We actually list those the numbers and the actual motion.
026, 027, 028.
Sorry,
So NM 026-22 and then 027-22 NM
Can we add those
028-22.
numbers to the motion, please?
I'll second Councillor Teague's motion.
The council did first. That's this. Sorry. Can we have the? I'll put it. All those in favour say aye. All those against say no. I think the ayes have it, and I'll declare it carried, and there be no further business on the agenda. I declare the meeting closed at 12:40. Sorry, 11:40. 43. Thank you, councillors. Bid you good night.